Please excuse us, my mother-in-law said. My daughter is a med student, and her studies keep her very busy. On the day of the engagement party, there was an empty seat on my husband's side. Both my mother-in-law and father-in-law noticed my gaze and approached, looking quite apologetic. I told her she needed to be here, my husband Kenneth said, expressing his frustration with his sister and apologizing to my family. We smiled and reassured them, saying, "Don't worry about it." Seeing our understanding, my mother-in-law added, "We hope you'll get along well with our daughter too." I nodded, "Yes, of course." At that moment, I didn't think too much of it. Since my in-laws and Kenneth had left a good impression, I assumed his sister would be the same. My name is Holly, and I'm 33 years old. Kenneth and I registered our marriage 2 months ago and are planning to have our wedding ceremony next year. Around the time of our engagement party, my mother fell ill and was hospitalized. I wanted to wait until she fully recovered so she could see me in the wedding dress she had always dreamed of. In the meantime, I decided to embrace my role as a housewife. Before getting married, I worked as a doctor in a hospital. However, the demanding nature of the job took a toll on my mental and physical health, affecting both my work and personal life. Although I couldn't leave my patients immediately, I eventually resigned from the hospital on the advice of others. Perhaps a large hospital wasn't the right fit for me. During a period when I felt inadequate and embarrassed about my career, I met and married Kenneth. Raised in an ordinary family, he was surprised to learn I was a former doctor but saw me for who I was beyond my profession. "I'll work hard to keep you smiling," he would say, heading to work diligently every day. For him, I dedicated myself to cooking and housework. Thanks to Kenneth, I can now live my life with a smile. As my health gradually improved, I began considering re-entering the workforce using my medical license. However, amidst our happy life, one thing concerned me: my sister-in-law, whom I had never met. According to my in-laws, she's a busy med student. We were supposed to meet at the engagement party, but she couldn't attend due to her studies. Having passed her exams on the first try, she must be quite capable. Since Kenneth and I registered our marriage around the same time as the party, we missed the chance to meet her. I hoped we could eventually greet each other. One day, Kenneth and I went out to the city. We enjoyed looking at furniture and matching dinnerware together. As we were thinking of taking a break, a voice called out, "Isn't that Kenneth?" Kenneth turned around, and I followed his gaze. A flashy young woman stood there, dressed in a low-cut dress and high-heeled pumps with a strong perfume scent. "Rachel, what are you doing here?" Kenneth asked. The woman named Rachel scrutinized me, making me feel uncomfortable. Kenneth introduced her to me. "Holly, this is your first time meeting her, right? This is my sister, Rachel. So this is her." "Nice to meet you, I'm Holly," I said, politely greeting my sister-in-law. She was different from what I had imagined, but I reminded myself not to judge people by their appearance. As I reflected on this, Rachel laughed mockingly. "Oh, so you're already married. Wow, Kenneth, you're handsome and have a high income, but you married such a plain woman. That's just weird." I was taken aback by her blatantly rude comment on our first meeting. It was true that Kenneth, 4 years younger than me, was good-looking and worked for a major pharmaceutical company, earning an above-average income. While strangers might think we were mismatched, I couldn't understand how she could say such things to my face. Sensing the tension, Kenneth stepped forward to defend me and scolded Rachel. "Hey, don't say such rude things. You should properly greet her, especially since you missed the engagement party due to your own convenience." Rachel laughed it off without any concern. "Well, I had a mixer to go to after a long time." Wait, wasn't she supposed to be busy with her studies? Shocked by the reason for her absence, I decided to try and mediate, worried that this could escalate into a heated argument between my husband and his sister. Well, we're meeting today, so that's good, right, Rachel? I look forward to getting along with you." Rachel glared at me. "What do you do anyway?" "I'm going to be a doctor, you know. Don't get too familiar with me." Her aura of "I'm important, I'm special" was overwhelming. I've encountered many people with high pride, but she was exceptional. I tried to calm Kenneth, who was about to yell, and replied, "I'm currently a housewife. I used to be." But Rachel interrupted me before I could finish. "A housewife? That's just like being unemployed. Unemployed people are society's garbage, and now you're my sister-in-law? Seriously? Oh, are you just a parasite living off my brother's money?" I felt my cheeks twitch involuntarily. In Rachel's mind, housewives seemed equivalent to unemployed people, which was an extreme view. My attempt to keep the peace had clearly backfired. Rachel, enough. Holly isn't the kind of person you think, Kenneth said, stepping in to defend me. It's okay, Kenneth, I said, calming him down. Even though our interaction was brief, I felt I understood what kind of person Rachel was. She must be intelligent, having passed her exams on the first try and keeping up with her credits, but her personality left much to be desired. Being a doctor is a wonderful profession indeed. It's a tough journey, but good luck with it, I said, smiling warmly. Ah, what do you know? I don't need your fake advice. Oh, and by the way, I'm still a student, so I'll pass on giving a wedding gift, thanks. My husband seemed too tired to get angry anymore. Just go, he said, gesturing as if shooing away an animal. Rachel complained in response. I came to say hi, but what a bad attitude. Well, whatever, I'm busy too, she said, before turning and walking away. After Rachel disappeared from sight, Kenneth deeply apologized to me. I'm really sorry about my sister. I can't believe she said all those rude things. She used to be more reasonable, I said, shaking my head. It's okay. Honestly, my impression of Rachel was nearly the worst, but it's better than having a fight because of me. We managed to exchange greetings, and from now on, I just need to keep my distance. Thank you for defending me so many times. You know what? Let's change our mood and have some coffee. I'm craving some delicious coffee. I smiled and Kenneth nodded, looking relieved. A few days later, I visited a large hospital nearby, carrying a tote bag with flowers and a change of clothes. I reached for the door of a private room. Mom, it's Holly. How are you feeling? I called as I opened the door. My mother smiled happily from her bed. I regularly visited her to help with her clothes and personal care. Today, she seemed to be in pretty good spirits. In place of my mother, my brother Andrew, removing his stethoscope, answered. He works as a doctor at this hospital and keeps a close eye on our mother's condition. Seeing his familiar face always brings a smile to mine. It's been a while, Andrew, he said, smiling as he continued to record our mother's progress. I set down my tote bag and took a seat on the round chair beside her bed. Dad was here a moment ago, but he left for a conference. Bad timing. It would have been nice if the whole family could have been together. What a pity, my mother chuckled. This hospital is actually run by my father. I used to work here as a doctor just like him and Andrew. It feels strange being here, a place that's both my family home and former workplace. After enjoying a chat, my mother, feeling sleepy from her medication, said, I think the medicine is working. I'm feeling a bit drowsy, and started to drift off. After tucking her in, my brother said, seeing both of us might have comforted her. We smiled at each other and left the room quietly. My brother and I sat down on a couch in the lobby. How are things with Kenneth? Are you two getting along? He asked. I nodded. Yes, we're having a good time every day. He laughed and patted my head. Ever since I was young, he's always been overly concerned about me, and that hasn't changed even after my marriage. Everyone in our family was worried when you left the hospital. Meeting Kenneth was the best thing that happened to you, I think. I've been able to recover because of Kenneth's presence. While we were chatting, a nurse called my brother away. I'll be right back, just wait here for a bit. I nodded and watched him go to attend to a patient. He's usually busy, second only to our father, the director. It's almost miraculous that we had time to chat. I would have been helping out at the hospital just like my dad and brother if things had been different. Feeling slightly gloomy, I sighed. Hey, what's the unemployed Holly doing here? A familiar loud voice interrupted my thoughts. I looked up to see my sister-in-law Rachel standing there, looking down at me with a malicious smile. Her emphasis on unemployed irked me, but I maintained a polite smile. Hi, Rachel. I came to visit my mom today. You know we're in a hospital, so it's better to keep your voice down. Feeling uncomfortable at this encounter, I inwardly groaned. Rachel ignored my subtle hint and continued to speak loudly. Wow, your mom's hospitalized. I came here for clinical training today, Rachel said. From her attire, I had somewhat guessed that might be the case. It's not unusual considering she's a med student at a nearby university, but I wish I hadn't run into her. Even so, her appearance is a bit off. I discreetly glanced at Rachel's outfit and couldn't help but feel dismayed. Though not as extreme as the last time we met, her makeup was still flashy and her loosely tied hair was casual. I wondered if she understood the need for a more professional appearance. When I worked as a doctor, I wore makeup too, but I always prioritized cleanliness and kept it subtle to avoid discomforting the patients. Doesn't anyone advise her on this? Glancing around, I noticed several medical students and doctors, many of whom were my former colleagues, looking pale and uneasy behind her. Most of these doctors knew me well, and the medical students, upon being whispered to, seemed to realize that I am the daughter of the hospital director. To them, Rachel must appear as a reckless med student offending the director's daughter, her loud voice disrupting the hospital's decorum. I tried to suggest moving elsewhere. Rachel, please keep your voice down. It's disturbing. Rachel exaggeratedly sighed and interrupted me. A woman like you, unemployed and catching a high-income man like my brother, must be a relief to your mother, right? I bet you're making him pay for your mother's hospital bills, aren't you? Just like a trashy family would. She smirked, making it seem like I was some sort of embarrassment in front of everyone. Her awful words shocked not only the nearby doctors and medical students but also the passing patients who frowned. Being publicly called unemployed and having my innocent mother insulted was too much for me. Hey, enough is enough. One of the doctors, unable to stand it any longer, stepped in to stop Rachel, but she wouldn't listen. She deserves to be spoken to like this. Rachel laughed. The doctor who intervened furrowed his brow at Rachel's remark and left, muttering, "Your life is over, kid." Rachel seemed clueless about what that meant. Then my brother Andrew, who had finished his work, came back. Seeing the tension between Rachel and me and sensing the strange atmosphere, he looked puzzled. "Ah, Andrew." Rachel's attitude changed drastically with Andrew's arrival, and I was taken aback. She was the epitome of putting on a facade. She changed her tone and started cozying up to my brother. I couldn't help but notice that even her facial expression seemed to alter. Andrew is young, talented, and handsome, even from his sister's biased view. Being the successor to her father, he's quite popular. I instantly realized that Rachel was aiming for him. "Holly, what's going on?" Andrew asked, addressing me by name, to which Rachel glared at me. "Andrew, are you close with her?" she asked, her tone dripping with disdain. Calling the doctor at her training site by his first name was appalling. Andrew distanced himself from Rachel and casually replied, "Well, yes." Rachel, apparently unhappy with his response, persisted annoyingly. "But she's married, you know. You weren't aware of that, right? Andrew, you're popular. You should be careful." Her sugary nasal voice was irritating. She seemed to mistake me for a rival aiming for Andrew. "I know, she's my sister, after all." At Andrew's words, Rachel froze. "What? What?" I struggled to contain my laughter at Rachel's stunned expression. While Rachel stood there dumbfounded, the medical student who had intervened earlier whispered in Andrew's ear, likely explaining the whole situation. Andrew's expression turned stern in an instant. "Wait, so Holly is the daughter of the director of this hospital?" As Rachel looked confused, I nodded. "Yes, I'm his daughter. I originally worked here as a doctor. I had to quit due to health issues. Now I'm recovering and temporarily putting my efforts into being the housewife." Rachel turned pale at my words. I had heard from Kenneth that she was hoping to get a job at this hospital. She must realize now that after insulting my mother and me, and with my brother hearing it, her chances of employment here are bleak, and so are her dreams of marrying into wealth. I glanced at Andrew's profile and smiled inwardly. "She's unbelievable as a person," Andrew muttered quietly. It seemed he never had any interest in Rachel in the first place. "Rachel seems to be quite excellent as a medical student," I continued. At my words, Rachel visibly flinched. To easily label people as social garbage or belittle them, that's a problem not just as a doctor, but as a human being. Unless you realize what that problem is, you're not qualified to be a doctor. Reflect on that. The people around nodded in agreement with my admonishing tone. Lectured by me, whom she had mocked, and disappointed by Andrew, whom she admired, it must have been a series of embarrassments for her. However, I didn't want her to become a doctor as she was. Doctors not only bear responsibility for lives but also need to empathize with people's hearts, I believe. "Ha! I don't get it," Rachel muttered, feeling uncomfortable with the atmosphere. She turned and hurried away. "Don't run in the hospital," scolded a passing nurse. Startled, Rachel took a spectacular fall. Andrew and I exchanged glances and laughed, resigned to the absurdity of the situation. Half a year passed. Rachel, already known for her bad character, became completely isolated after ridiculing me in the hospital. Her pride led her to heavy drinking, which resulted in a severe injury and hospitalization. Ironically, she was now being cared for by the very doctors she aspired to join. Finally, understanding her own arrogance, she expressed regret and a desire to apologize to me, as I heard from my in-laws. She decided to take a break from medical school and planned to start afresh after her discharge, but it would be a thorny path for her. Meanwhile, I secured a new job as a medical doctor at a pharmaceutical company. My role involves researching and developing medications as well as verifying the safety of new drugs. My father and brother asked if I would return to the hospital, but I wanted to try something new. My mother's health improved enough for home care, and she's looking forward to attending our wedding next year.
My husband Larry will inherit the house, the $5 million, and the director position. When Julie heard a lawyer was there for Kyle's inheritance proceedings, she couldn't hide her joy. She walked into the living room like she owned the place. Julie, who always asked about the inheritance and if it was done yet, must have been eagerly waiting for this day. Ignoring me, she went straight to the lawyer. The old me would have told her off, but as Julie turned her back to me, I couldn't wait to hear what she'd say next. Her greedy comments were even worse than I expected, and I laughed out loud, holding my stomach. The lawyer looked stunned, and I kept laughing at Julie's boldness. Julie didn't think it was funny and gave me a cold look. "Do you really think you'll get your father-in-law's inheritance?" I laughed at her obsession with money and her dramatic attitude. Pointing to the late-arriving Larry, she raised her voice. "The right to inherit belongs to my husband Larry." I took a deep breath, ready to tell her the truth. "My name is Lauren, and I am 62 years old. I have been a full-time housewife, supporting my doctor husband Kyle for a long time. Even after becoming a director, he always kept working, never tired. Larry grew up watching his father and decided to follow the same path. I believe my husband had a happy and fulfilling life. However, my husband passed away at the age of 65. He was passionate about his work and believed being a doctor was his calling. Maybe his sudden death was due to overworking, but at his funeral, I felt he had no regrets. Not just his superiors and colleagues, but also subordinates and others, came to the funeral. The venue was packed with people mourning him. It wasn't just medical professionals who attended. Many patients he had treated in the past came to pay their respects. I didn't know exactly how he worked since I only saw Kyle going to and from his job every day, but seeing how much he was loved reassured me that he had done the right things in his life. At the somber funeral, Julie, the eldest son's wife, seemed restless and out of place. Her face relaxed almost as if she was happy about her father-in-law's death. My suspicions were confirmed when I overheard her talking with relatives. My father-in-law was always working. I think he might have saved quite a lot since he probably didn't have much time to spend money, she said. Hearing such a statement right behind me, I couldn't believe my ears. Despite being in the middle of a funeral, Julie seemed more concerned about how her father-in-law's inheritance would be divided. Perhaps she didn't know that a daughter-in-law might not have any inheritance rights. Even so, her behavior wasn't appropriate for the funeral. Seeing her actions, Larry, the eldest son, apologized to me with a guilty look. "Mom, I'm truly sorry. No matter how many times I tell her, Julie doesn't listen." "It's not your fault, Larry, but if you feel that way, can you please firmly warn her? Many people are attending this event." I knew about Julie's behavior even before Larry mentioned it. Remembering her inexcusable attitude, I recalled how she didn't help at all while I was busy with my husband's funeral preparations. She didn't offer me any words of comfort or sympathy. To make matters worse, she was always talking about the money, asking things like, "Your husband had quite an inheritance, right? How much was it? Even if you're his wife, it's his inheritance, so don't waste it, okay? Did you come here just to say that? Is that all you have to say?" "Well, yeah, if you squander it just because you don't have long to live, I'll be in trouble." Anger and disbelief flooded over me as Julie spoke as if my late husband's assets belonged to her. Moreover, she always looked down on me and was sarcastic. I don't know why she dislikes me so much, but her comments about other people's assets have often left me disheartened. My son Larry was inspired by his father and became a doctor. Larry's earnings are not bad, but Julie has always been overly obsessed with money. She'd often call me saying things like, "I'm worried about our future with Larry's low income," or "we're short on money," hinting that she wanted financial help. Because of this, getting along with her was very challenging. I used to let things slide, but now she's targeting my husband's inheritance, and I've reached my limit. Larry's income is really unstable, so we don't have much money to spend freely. We can't afford luxuries. Oh, really? Why don't you work then? That would help with the household expenses, and you could afford some luxuries. What? It's ridiculous for a doctor's wife to work. You're lucky since your husband earned well, and you could live comfortably. No matter how many times I tried to advise her, her attitude only worsened, and our arguments became more heated. She wouldn't even hesitate to belittle her own husband, Larry, just to look down on me. From her perspective, I'm her mother-in-law, but once married, we're family. I couldn't stand the way she treated family members with such disrespect. Thanks to my husband, I've been able to live comfortably. If she wanted the same, maybe she should respect and support her husband a bit more. If there was something about Larry to respect, then maybe. Anyway, I'm off to get my nails done and have a spa day. Don't forget about the inheritance, okay? Bye now. She just blurted out whatever she wanted and promptly left the house. Given her stormy behavior, I began to wonder how Larry was treated at home. But her self-centered actions didn't end there. During the inheritance proceedings, she continued her bad behavior, which became increasingly intolerable. Even after the funeral was over, every time she visited, she'd greet me with, "How's the inheritance coming along?" It felt like a standard greeting. Despite explaining several times that the process takes time, she either forgets or doesn't understand and constantly pressures me whenever she sees me. I've told her multiple times that she has no rights to the inheritance, but she just doesn't seem to get it. Whether she believes Larry's money is hers or has some other scheme in mind, she seems convinced she'll inherit a fortune. After discussing with Larry, or rather manipulating the conversation to her advantage, she probably intends to get a share of the inheritance. If that was all, it would be a family matter for Larry to handle. But her actions affect everyone involved, making the situation much more complicated and stressful. I shouldn't interfere, but Julie tried to steal valuable things from our house. "Julie, what are you doing?" "That's my necklace." "Oh, come on, don't be so stingy. We're family, so it's okay, right?" "I can't be friends with someone who would steal from me." "Fine then, I'll take it as an advance on the inheritance." "That's okay, right? I am being patient here." No matter how many times I told her not to act like that, she wouldn't listen to me. From the moment she took my cherished necklace, a gift from my husband, I couldn't stand it. After that, I never opened the door for her again. Even though Larry frequently messaged saying, "Mom, I'm truly sorry for Julie," he couldn't stop her. I gave up expecting anything from Larry or Julie. I didn't even have time to grieve the loss of the necklace as her harassment continued. She badmouthed me to her friends and others, calling me the worst mother-in-law who won't even let her in the house. The neighbors would say, "It looks tough," with a smile, but they showed concern. I don't understand why she hates me so much. It gives me a headache. What hurt the most was a letter I found in our mailbox. I felt disgusted just by seeing the already opened envelope. When I checked its contents, it was addressed to Larry and his wife. Whether it's Julie's idea of harassment because I won't let her in, her credit card bill was in our mailbox. Seeing the statement filled with extravagant expenses from luxury restaurants and online shopping made my blood run cold. "Larry, there's a credit card bill for Julie in our mailbox. It was already opened and checked. What's the meaning of this?" "Huh? I have no idea. It seems like she has spent a lot. She always talks about her income to me. Is everything okay?" "Well, it's actually tough. Mom, I'm sorry to ask, but could you pay it for us?" Wanting to complain, I contacted Larry. However, whether under Julie's influence or due to the power dynamics in his household, he said something unbelievable, leaving me speechless. I wondered why I needed to help them. Why would he even think I'd assist them? He can't even retrieve the cherished necklace from his wife. What is he even saying? I also harshly criticized his behavior, which seemed to only remember things convenient for him. I've already done my part in supporting you as a parent. Why would an adult like you burden their parent and ask for help? Well, we have Dad's inheritance, right? You won't be able to use it all by yourself. Please, I thought you'd help. There's a saying about a thief acting brazenly after committing theft, and now I get it. Larry, you and Julie are really a match made in heaven. I'm cutting ties. Stay away from me. I could tell from the other end of the phone that he wasn't taking what I was saying seriously. I was so furious with his attitude. After hanging up, I immediately threw the bill into the trash. The idea that Julie might have deliberately put it in our mailbox, assuming I'd pay, was unbelievable. Most of all, it was an inconceivable act and made me question her as a person. Do you think I haven't thought about it? Is there really a way to get the inheritance? Kyle, what should I do? I asked my husband's photo, picking it up unconsciously. From my anger and disappointment towards Larry and Julie, I've lost understanding of how to handle my emotions. Is it really okay to proceed with the inheritance as it is? Amidst my insecurities, I somehow gathered courage. I hope someday they get what they deserve. Frustrated by their appalling behavior, I dealt with the inheritance proceedings alone. Perhaps my feelings got through, as I found out my husband had left a will, and in it, something was written. After reading the will my husband left behind, I resolved to protect myself and get back at them. Phew, I'm glad it seems Kyle was on my side after all. Thank you, I whispered, holding back tears and pressing the will to my chest. I regained my composure. I clenched my fist, deciding I wouldn't just do nothing and let those two dictate things. I decided to wait for the right moment to make a big move against them. Maybe because I felt relieved at the thought of being able to retaliate for all the suffering, I completely forgot about Julie's bill. I would have thrown it away from the start, not intending to pay, but she must have received a reminder. This time, I received a message from her, even though I had told her the inheritance proceedings were not yet completed. There were false accusations that I wanted to control everything. Her words seemed to attack me. It's because you haven't settled the inheritance yet. I'll wait a little longer, but please do it as soon as possible. Oh, by the way, you saw the bill I left in the mailbox, right? Please make that payment. What are you talking about? Stop joking. Why do you think you're entitled to the inheritance? Oh, come on, Larry is the eldest son, right? It's only natural for him to get an inheritance, isn't it? Do they think I know nothing? Julie scoffed and said with a smirk, Larry has a right to inherit because he's the eldest son. In general, this is not incorrect. Even after Julie said all this, I still haven't told them the important thing. Even if I don't tell them, it's their own problem, and they should naturally know about it. But for them, who only think conveniently, it might be hard to realize. I'm waiting for the perfect moment when they fall apart, watching for the right timing. And finally, that time came. It was when I had explained the situation to the lawyer, and after the proceedings were finished with his cooperation, I finalized the plan. I will contact Larry when the procedure is complete. After discussing with the lawyer, to me it's just a routine communication. But as expected, Julie came to my house with a face filled with joy. I deliberately left the front door unlocked. Without any suspicion, she opened the door and stomped in. Seeing her, I could hardly hold back my laughter. I've been waiting for so long. Isn't it terrible? You've been reluctant to complete the procedure and won't give up the inheritance. Oh, Julie, what brings you here? Is this gentleman the lawyer? I am July, Larry's wife. Ignoring me completely, she headed straight to the lawyer sitting in front of me. Normally, I would reprimand her for such rude behavior, but this time I held back and waited. She turned her back on me, ignoring me, and approached the lawyer. I was excited to hear what she would say next. Finally, we will inherit this house, $5 million, and the director's position because Larry is the eldest son, she said. Her greedy remark was more than I expected, and I laughed out loud, holding my stomach. The audacity of her and the lawyer's stunned face made it even funnier, and I kept laughing. Of course, Julie didn't find the situation amusing and glared at me coldly. "Hey, what's so funny? Are you upset that we are taking the inheritance?" "No, why? 5 million? How did you come up with that amount?" "Come on, your husband worked as a doctor for a long time, right? He probably didn't have time to spend money. It's obvious that there's that much money. Unless, have you already used it?" I genuinely laughed at her obsession with money. "Whatever I choose to do with my inheritance is my business, and you have no right to complain." However, it seems she doesn't like the idea of me inheriting. "How many times have I told you, since you don't have much longer to live, don't do anything reckless? Even if you're related by marriage, it's quite something to say that to me, your elder. Didn't I tell you that you have no right to inherit?" Julie, wearing the necklace she stole from me, glared at me sharply. I have no intention of letting her take anything more precious from me. I made up my mind not to lose to her, who is self-centered, greedy, and obsessed with money. I clenched my fist. Pointing to the late-arriving Larry, Julie exclaimed loudly, "The right to inherit belongs to my husband, Larry." Taking a deep breath, I decided to tell them the truth. "You see, there shouldn't be any inheritance for you two to claim. Larry, isn't that right?" "Huh? Why, Mom? What do you mean?" "Oh, don't you have any idea? Aren't you forgetting something?" "Wait, are you talking about that issue? It was resolved a long time ago, wasn't it?" "Duh, what are you even talking about? Truly disappointing. What have you made amends for? What's resolved? Don't talk nonsense." "Wait a minute, what are you talking about?" I was taken aback by her demeanor, as if she had completely forgotten or knew nothing about the issue, even though it was a situation she caused. It seemed she couldn't remember it. I decided to explain the situation in detail for them to understand. Larry had married Julie a few years back. However, before that, he was already married to another woman and had a child with her. Despite having a family, he neglected them to have an affair with Julie. After their affair, Larry and Julie got married. The truth came out when Larry came begging Kyle, unable to pay alimony and child support on his own. "Larry, what were you thinking? I never thought you would stoop this low. I had no other choice if I wanted to marry Julie." "What are you saying? You're the one who committed the wrongdoing. Even if you are my son, don't expect me to pay for your mistakes. Larry, take responsibility and sort it out." "Why? You can help me a bit. As a doctor, you are constantly working and don't have time to spend money, so you must have some to spare, right?" Larry's audacious remark pushed my husband's anger to its peak. When Larry started making excuses about being overwhelmed with newlywed life and needing money for their wedding, my husband decided to cast aside his feelings as a parent and choose his grandchild instead. "Fine, I'll pay on your behalf. There's no need for my grandchild to suffer because of a terrible father like you." "Dad, don't say it in such a sarcastic way. I'm your son, you know." "Exactly, that's the point. And in exchange, I won't support you in any way from now on. And of course, don't expect to inherit a single thing from me." Larry probably thought that my husband's words were just declarations made in the heat of the moment. But my husband believed that someone who abandons their family doesn't deserve to be celebrated. He neither attended the wedding nor offered any support. "Dad, just let it go. In the future, you'll rely on us for care, right? We are family, so try to compromise a bit." "No way. Why would I bother with someone like you?" Knowing that his father had money, Larry had previously mentioned the need for future care and requested support. However, my husband didn't listen to Larry's words, and as he declared, He made sure it was written in his will. It clearly stated that everything should go to his wife and grandchild. My husband, with his strict personality, had meticulously written and prepared the will to ensure that not even a small amount of money would go to Larry and his wife. This fact became known when my husband's lawyer showed the will during the funeral proceedings. He said he had received the will from my husband in advance. Remembering the anger at that time brings up emotions, but I deeply thanked my husband for his foresight and protection. My husband left a will stating that even though Larry is his son, he does not have the right to inherit his father's estate. When the lawyer read the contents of the will, Larry and Julie were shocked. I decided to add insult to injury. "Oh, by the way, Julie, you took things from our house, right? You said it was like an advance on the inheritance. But you heard the will the lawyer read, right? You have no rights, so give it back. It was a gift from my husband to me." I pointed to the necklace she was wearing. She threw the necklace at me with a visibly angry attitude, clicking her tongue and glaring at me. Probably because the lawyer was present, she couldn't say anything reckless. I didn't hear about this. I thought I'd finally get my father-in-law's inheritance. I came all the way here today. What's going on? Really? When you announced your marriage, you said being pursued meant you were more attractive, so it was inevitable, right? You knew what you were getting into when you got with him while he already had a family. I remembered how furious I was at her attitude back then. I used to think Larry was deceived by such a terrible woman, but now I realize they are a perfectly matched couple. I will definitely inherit. Oh, there is the hospital. It would be troublesome if the director was absent, right? This kind of succession is usually done by the son. Too bad, it's already been handed over to a competent subordinate. Huh? Why? Isn't it normal for the son to take over? Ha ha ha, to begin with, you're doing something that's not normal, right? It's your own doing. Realize that you're not the norm. She was desperate for the inheritance, whether it be the hospital or the house. In the end, she clung to the lawyer, asking, "Then what can I get?" But the lawyer my husband had contracted wouldn't easily tell her. He repeatedly explained the contents of the will, stating, "The two of you have no inheritance rights," and responded calmly, "This is unbelievable. I don't believe it. It must be a mistake." Really, no matter how much you fuss, nothing will change. Even if you sue, you'll just end up embarrassed. If you're okay with that, feel free to do so. Perhaps finding my cold treatment unbearable, she stormed out of the house with a face as red as a boiled octopus. I watched her leave with Larry. I held the necklace and quietly pumped my fist in triumph. After that, she never contacted me or visited the house again, and the inheritance procedures were completed smoothly. I was worried they would confront Larry's ex-wife who has a grandchild, but Larry, who doesn't even pay child support, wouldn't know her contact details, so there were no issues. Larry and Julie, who didn't get any inheritance, seemed to be having a big quarrel. Julie told Larry, "I married you thinking I would get a big inheritance from your father," and they are apparently on the brink of divorce. The saying, "end of money, end of love," fits them perfectly. I only received one contact from Larry, saying, "Give me the money or house you inherited," but I naturally ignored it. I exclaimed, "Don't talk nonsense while you're awake," and hung up the phone. I sighed, wondering where I went wrong raising my son, but there was also good news. A letter arrived from Larry's ex-wife stating that the inheritance procedures were completed. In it, along with an update, there was a photo of my cute grandchild and words of gratitude. "Thank you for being such wonderful grandparents," it said. "They are living very happily now." The grandchild my husband had been concerned about until the end is growing up healthy and living happily with her new father. There was also a lovely family photo in the letter, and although I felt guilt as a parent, my mood was brightened and my heart warmed. I was very happy and immediately read the letter in front of my husband's altar to report to him. I was continuously disappointed by Larry's actions and words. However, I was able to report to my husband about the grandchild, which always brought a smile to his face, and I was happy and satisfied. Don't you dare come to my graduation ceremony. If a plain old lady like you shows up, everyone will laugh at me. It's my big day, so stay away. These were my daughter Lauren's words. She thinks I'm an embarrassment. When she called, her voice was sharp and panicked. Hey, old lady, where are you? Leaving a silly note like that and thinking you'll get away with it? Come home right now. I could hear my husband John's voice too. Both were frantic. My name is Kelly Brooke. I'm a 41-year-old housewife. I've been working part-time at a local real estate agency, raising Lauren and doing household chores for over a decade. I married John 15 years ago. He had Lauren from his previous marriage. I met John at work before we got married. I was working at a construction company, and John was there for sales. Our company was tough on contractors, but John always had a smile and a positive attitude. I once recommended a product he was selling to my company, and as a result, his company got the contract. This led to us going out for meals several times, deepening our relationship. Eventually, he proposed, and I happily accepted. I quit my job just before our wedding. John confessed that he was living alone with his 8-year-old daughter. At first, I thought it was a lie, but it was true. I met Lauren a week before the ceremony. She was shy, hiding behind John, and not coming out in front of me. That's when I decided I would take care of her until she graduated high school. I couldn't forget Lauren's anxious eyes peeking out from behind John. Despite my family's strong disapproval, I decided to marry John. It was my first marriage, and my father was especially furious, saying I was being mocked. But I went against their wishes and married John. If I had listened to my parents, I might have avoided the troubles that were about to come. It's been 15 years since I got married. Lauren is now 16 and about to graduate from high school. Normally, this would be a joyful moment, but I couldn't feel happy. I remembered my hope of making her a respectable adult when I decided to marry John. Hey, old lady, where's my t-shirt? Did you steal it? Lauren started calling me old lady 3 years after we began living together. She used to be kind, but then she suddenly became rude. Is this the t-shirt you're looking for? I handed her the shirt from the folded laundry. Why did you wash it? What if it shrinks? Normally, you should take it to the cleaners. You're so clueless, really so dense. I had hand-washed and air-dried the t-shirt, thinking it would be damaged at the cleaners, but I couldn't explain this to Lauren. All I could do was apologize. Lauren snatched the shirt from my hand, muttering, "You're so useless," before walking away. Her words pierced my heart. I couldn't argue back and just bowed my head. I didn't understand why Lauren had become so harsh with me. At first, I thought it was because she was teased about her father's remarriage, but that didn't seem to be the case. Around the same time, John's attitude towards me also changed. He used to smile a lot, like when he was selling, but lately he stopped smiling at home and became more sullen. He even started calling me "Hey you." Lauren's behavior seemed to follow his lead. I thought maybe I was lacking in some way, so I tried harder with the housework and took extra care of Lauren. I wanted her to grow up to be a respectable adult, but contrary to my hopes, Lauren's attitude towards me worsened day by day. Calling me old lady became the norm for her. I never heard words of gratitude from Lauren anymore. What was strange was that at parent-teacher conferences in elementary school, Lauren's behavior was normal and she wasn't rude at all. John talked normally with Lauren, even smiling sometimes. This meant that her terrible behavior was directed only at me, which hurt me even more. Whenever I tried to talk to John, his attitude was distant, completely different from before. I had no one to confide in, and I felt more and more isolated in my own home. Since middle school, Lauren stopped telling me about school, and John would attend school events. I had to learn about the schedule for school events from my neighbors. John and Lauren seemed to get along well, going out together sometimes. I wanted to be treated as family by John and Lauren too. I had always wanted to live happily together. I never imagined it would be this painful to have that wish unfulfilled. John's attitude towards me continued to worsen. Dust is piling up on the stairs. Clean it up. You're a stay-at-home wife, aren't you? The toilet paper is almost out. Are you even cleaning the bathroom? You're really dense, you know. I frequently received such rejoins from John. Originally, when we first got married, we both shared household chores. John had been doing housework while living with Lauren, and he was happy at first to share the chores with me. But now I do all the housework. John used to say it was wrong for a stay-at-home wife to do all the housework. Lauren was an easy child to take care of, but this somehow made things worse for me. When I tried talking to John, he just dismissed it as my lack of effort. In the end, everything was my fault. The more I tried talking to John, the heavier my heart felt. He would nitpick my housekeeping, constantly criticizing me. You can't even clean properly. No improvement after all these years. Do you lack learning ability? John looked down on me with disdain. All I could do was apologize. I'm sorry. I'll try harder. Please forgive me. John sighed dramatically, as if exasperated. Even if you try hard, you won't be able to do it. That's why you get scolded. Always saying you'll do it. But have you ever? John's words kept chipping away at my heart as time passed. I was worn out, and Lauren turned 19. I was curious about her plans after graduation, but she wouldn't tell me, and neither would John. By then, I had stopped talking to John and Lauren unless it was absolutely necessary. One day, I overheard Lauren and John discussing her future. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but I wanted to know, so I listened. I got it. I could go to college on a recommendation, and I even got a scholarship. Thanks, Dad. Thank you. I could hear the joy in Lauren's voice. She never spoke to me like that. Good for you. It's the result of your efforts. All the housework we dumped on that dense housekeeper was worth it. Were they referring to me as the housekeeper? Yeah, she was a good outlet for stress. I heard their mocking laughter. Quietly, I left and locked myself in the bathroom, the only place I could be alone. I crouched there, holding my head, and cried. To think that John and Lauren saw me in such a light. I had endured for the past 12 years, being Lauren's mother and John's wife, even when my heart felt like it was breaking. I forced myself to keep going, even when I felt at my limit. There were times I felt I couldn't get up, but I made myself do it. Making lunchboxes, preparing breakfast, doing laundry, and other housework. It hurt to even lie down, but if I did that, I feared I would never be needed by John and Lauren again. Driven by this fear, I continued to live in exhaustion. Honestly, I don't remember much about this period. One day, after shopping, a neighbor told me something shocking. Tomorrow was Lauren's high school graduation. I couldn't admit I didn't know, so I just smiled vaguely and left. As soon as I got home, I collapsed onto the sofa. I had always thought about making Lauren a respectable adult. Her graduation from high school was supposed to be a milestone for that. Again, I was the only one left out in this house. I'm not allowed to have a smartphone or use a computer. The only thing I have is a simple flip phone that can only make calls. Since John handles all the school communications, I don't have any mom friends or any way to get information about the school. Still, I learned about sports days and recitals from neighbors or overheard children's conversations and secretly attended them. I wanted to attend Lauren's high school graduation and celebrate her step into adulthood. While I was crying on the sofa, Lauren came home from school. Old lady, why are you loafing around? You're so gloomy you make the whole house dark. Can't you do something about it? Lauren glared at me. If she had told me the date of the graduation, I wouldn't have felt this way. For the first time, I felt anger rising from the depths of my heart. So the graduation is tomorrow. Seems you didn't tell me about it, I said with a tone of blame. Lauren looked a bit startled by my words, but then sighed dramatically. So what? You're not going to the graduation anyway, so you don't need to know the date. I was surprised. I never said I wasn't going to the graduation. Don't come. If a plain old lady like you comes, you'll just be a laughingstock. It's my big day. Absolutely do not come. Lauren's words made me feel dizzy. Clearly, she didn't think of me as family. To her, I was an embarrassing presence. Just this once, I had hoped for forgiveness, but it was denied. Her words pierced my heart. I was truly just a nuisance, clearly told so by Lauren herself. That night, John came home with a suit and a dry cleaner bag. He had taken his suit to the cleaners himself without asking me. Of course, he knew about Lauren's graduation. When I saw the suit, John commented, "Right, you didn't hear about it from Lauren." He looked at me with a mix of pity and a smirk. I realized I was the least needed in this house. Thinking I was part of the family was just my own delusion. At that moment, I realized my heart had reached its limit long ago. So I decided to end my role as a family member. The next day, John and Lauren left together for her high school graduation. I was left behind, and John even told me not to bother with dinner as they would eat out. I wasn't invited. The old me would have just silently accepted this treatment, but those days were over. I decided to leave this house. It was a decision I made last night. As soon as they left, I quickly packed my things, left a note, and left the house. I couldn't be part of John and Lauren's family anymore. I decided to seek refuge at my parents' house, a 3-hour train ride away. There, I would prepare to sever ties with John and Lauren. The note I left stated my wish to cut familial ties and live independently, and that further details should be discussed through a lawyer. I hadn't found a lawyer yet, but I knew my father could recommend one. My family is wealthy and owns a lot of land. My father is a well-known figure in the area and owns considerable real estate. I remembered meeting a lawyer during a New Year's greeting at home, so I knew my father could help. Another task I needed to do was sell the house where John and Lauren currently lived. This house was built on land owned by my father, and the construction was funded by him as a wedding gift for me. I had been repaying my father slowly with the money I earned from my real estate job, which he had also helped me get. The house, including the land, is owned by my father and legally registered in his name. At the time, John might have thought the house was a gift and never asked about the ownership because he was afraid of offending my father and losing the gift. John was the classic home tyrant, harsh to those he saw as weaker but submissive to those above him. I told my father everything that had happened. As I spoke, tears flowed uncontrollably, and I had to pause several times due to sobbing, but my father listened until the end. I saw tears in his eyes too. The most relieving part was that my father didn't criticize my initial decision to marry John. At the end, my father said, "You've been through a lot." Afterward, he made several phone calls, and lawyers and real estate managers came to the house. Everything happened quickly from there. It was decided that the house would be demolished, and the demolition was scheduled for a week later. In the note I left, I wrote, "Please leave within a week." My father commented sarcastically, "That's quite kind of you." For me, it was just to avoid any later complaints. During the week, I consulted with the lawyer about the divorce. I also shared the whole story with my mother, and we cried together. I can't forget the determined look on my mother's face. I had also discussed my future plans with my father. The priority was to establish a new foundation for my life. It took courage to talk to my parents, and it was painful, but once I did, my heart felt lighter. For the first time in 12 years, I slept soundly. 2 weeks later, while I was staying at my parents' house, I received a call on my cell phone. As expected, it was Lauren. Honestly, I didn't want to talk to her. Remembering how she had treated me, a black stain spread in my heart. I decided to ignore the call, but they didn't stop. There were several from John as well. They were probably calling about the note I left or the demolition. For 12 years, John and Lauren called me old lady and you, exploiting my efforts and treating me like a tool. I endured such treatment for a long time. The thought of dealing with them again made me shudder, but I knew I needed to settle the past to move forward. Without confronting them, I wouldn't feel at peace. I felt I owed them a proper response, so I steeled myself and answered the phone. "Hey, old lady, where are you right now?" Lauren's screeching voice pierced my ears, hurried and panicked. Leaving such a ridiculous note. "You think you'll be forgiven? Where are you now? Come back home right now." I could hear John's voice as well. They both seemed frantic. I imagined Lauren's reaction when she returned from her graduation ceremony to find no old lady to vent her stress on, and the note about the divorce and the house. I couldn't help but smile faintly at Lauren's panic. Who is this, please?" I asked. Lauren seemed taken aback by my response and stumbled over her words. I hung up the phone. Afterward, I called the real estate management company to confirm when the demolition would start. It was scheduled for tomorrow as planned, and John had already been informed. I requested to postpone the demolition to the day after tomorrow and asked them to inform John about the delay. This gave them one more day. John would probably come here, and that's when I would deliver my final message to John and Lauren. I ignored the dozens of calls from them. The next day, around noon, I heard the doorbell ring and knocking on the door. It must be John and Lauren. They would have wanted to come earlier, but the journey here could be long due to poor connections. John and Lauren appeared, panting heavily, evidently having rushed here. I had arranged for my parents to stay in another room, so it seemed like I was the only one at home. I led John and Lauren into the living room. John entered hesitantly, clearly uncomfortable around my father. My father is wealthy, well-respected, and has a commanding presence, making him a higher authority than John. On the other hand, Lauren didn't seem intimidated at all. She appeared determined to overpower me and bring me back home. Lauren plopped down on a chair in the living room, crossing her legs and silently gesturing for me to sit opposite her. I took my time preparing tea, moving leisurely before finally sitting across from her. Growing impatient, Lauren addressed me. "What's the meaning of all this?" John, sitting next to her, placed the note I had left on the table. I didn't react and just met Lauren's gaze silently. She was the first to look away, attempting to dispel the awkwardness with a laugh. "What was that 'who is this' act yesterday? Pretty poor performance." I continued to stare at Lauren silently. She became visibly uncomfortable, shifting in her seat. "Look, it's no use. A dumb old lady like you can't survive without us. You're nothing but trash." I almost reacted to her harsh words, but restrained myself, noticing the tremble in her voice. Lauren was clearly bluffing. John had been silent, just watching how things unfolded. "Stop being stubborn and come back home," Lauren said, trying to confuse and coax me back with her cruel words. As Lauren became more agitated, I responded calmly, "I don't have a family, do I?" "Oh, I have parents, but you two are not my family, are you?" Lauren, clearly out of her element, raised her voice. "What are you saying? Dad and I are your family, right?" "Right, Dad?" Lauren, feeling at a disadvantage alone, sought support from John. John looked around nervously, and, once he confirmed they were alone, turned to me with newfound bravado. "That's right. You can't live without us, just like Lauren says." "So you're coming back," John said, getting bossy all of a sudden when he noticed my parents were nowhere to be seen. Looking back on it now, what a small-spirited man he is. "Like I said, I have no family," I replied firmly. No matter what John and Lauren said, I would continue to treat them as strangers. They were not my family. If they were, they wouldn't have treated me like a slave. A true family supports and helps each other, especially when someone is in trouble. But John and Lauren were different. For 12 years, they treated me like a servant, a vent for their stress. They insisted this was normal, oblivious to how wrong and cruel it was, unconsciously oppressing me. I marvel at how I endured it for 12 years, almost impressed with myself. It started when I saw Lauren peeking out from behind John's back. I had promised myself to raise her to be a decent adult. I endured and served them for this promise, at least until Lauren graduated high school. I had decided that Lauren's high school graduation and her moving on would John the end of our relationship. I had held a faint hope that if John and Lauren changed their ways and improved their attitudes towards me by the time of her graduation, I would continue with them as a family, but they betrayed my expectations, leading to this situation. Everything was decided the day before the graduation ceremony, so now I confront them with the appropriate attitude. John and Lauren are no longer my family, and I will not treat them as such. Realizing the significance of my treating them as strangers, Lauren altered her approach. "We're family, aren't we, Mom? Stop this silly act, please," she said, switching from calling me old lady to Mom. Realizing her usual tactics wouldn't work, John swallowed hard and watched intently. "Even though you're not my birth mother, we've lived together all this time, so please listen to my request," Lauren pleaded, her previously defiant posture changing to one more pleading. "I have no obligation to respond to requests from someone who isn't family," I replied, keeping my composure and emotional distance. Tears appeared in Lauren's eyes as she looked at me desperately. "Please listen to me. The note you left, it's not true, right? You can't really be selling the house. It's not serious, right? Because you're part of our family." Lauren's use of the term "mom" made my skin crawl, especially since her main concern seemed to be the house. She was anxious about losing the house, not about losing me. No matter how much Lauren pleaded, my feelings remained unchanged. She lowered her face, apparently crying. "This is some kind of joke, right? You can't be serious," John said, upset by Lauren's tears, and turned his anger towards me. "What's with that note? Come back right now and stop the demolition." John spoke rapidly, driven by anger. "I can't do that. The decision has been made," I said in a restrained voice. "Do you think you can get away with doing this to your family?" John demanded. "That's why I've been saying we're not family," I replied. Neither John nor Lauren seemed willing to listen. "Please understand, we're not family." I wondered how many times I had to repeat the same thing. Suddenly, John stood up and slammed his fist on the table. "Don't joke with me." I was startled but managed not to react. "Who's joking? After not treating me as family for 12 years, you can't suddenly expect me to act like one. It's impossible." My voice was harsher than I intended. I'm angry too, though I didn't show it. My anger was bubbling up inside me like magma about to erupt. John and Lauren's selfish actions were unforgivable. They trampled on my 12 years of suffering and efforts to be part of the family. I tried to become a family with John and Lauren, but they mocked and used me. They wouldn't understand how lonely and painful it was to be left out. I wished so many times to be treated like family, but my wish never came true. It took me 12 years to give up, despite my continuous efforts. As Lauren's mother, this is the outcome. A self-mocking smile appeared on my face. Seeing my dry smile, John and Lauren stared at me in shock. John seemed to lose his strength and slumped into the chair. These two, far from understanding my feelings, tried to use me until the very end. No matter how much I cared for them, they never cared for me. Even though I cherished them, they never cherished me. When they found themselves in trouble, they said things like, "We're family," but they never meant it. They just wanted to use me. It's just too convenient. I felt not just a headache, but even nausea. Why did I keep tolerating these people for 12 years? It's strange to think back on it, but there's no point in reflecting now. There's no future for the three of us together anymore. All I can do is make John and Lauren acknowledge their guilt and pay for it. I won't expect or trust anything from Lauren or John anymore. John stood up and apologized. "I'm really sorry. Please come back, I beg you." Even with his apology, it doesn't touch my heart at all. I won't extend a helping hand, and I definitely won't think about living together. "Just stop it. I'm no longer your family. I'm a stranger," I said. Lauren also began to apologize, following John. "I'm sorry. Please forgive me. We're family, so let's go home together." I was astounded by their self-serving talk. After treating me like a stranger for 12 years, now they want me back because we're family? That's too naive. It's just not happening. I couldn't stay calm anymore. My words flowed, driven by emotion. Harsh words escaped my lips, words I had held back out of consideration for John and Lauren. I don't want to hear any excuses. I can't trust any words. I can't ever imagine us being a family again. At this point, I placed a piece of paper in front of John. It was a divorce paper, already signed by me. Write on the divorce paper now. I'll go and submit it. Write it here. John shook his head from side to side. Then he showed me a smile. Think it over, will you? I was astounded by John's lack of grace in handling the situation. Such a small-minded man. I had always misunderstood John's ingratiating smile. The smile he showed when we first met was a sleazy expression of sizing someone up. I mistook it for the smile of a kind person. It still makes me angry thinking about it. I stood up and called my parents from the back. My parents appeared in the living room. John's mouth was agape as if his jaw had fallen off. My father glared sharply at John, and my mother also had a stern look on her face. John shrunk back just from their gaze. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the trouble caused by Kelly's misdeed. I thought I heard it wrong. What misdeed of mine is John still trying to shift responsibility for? My father's eyebrows twitched, but he remained silent. Kelly, no, Miss Kelly left the house on her own. I was just trying to persuade her to come back. Right, Lauren? John was prompting Lauren to agree with his nonsense. Kelly's misdeed? Don't be ridiculous. My father's loud voice echoed through the house. The windows rattled. John and Lauren gasped and held their breath. My father stood in front of John, bent down to meet his gaze. How could you interpret Kelly's actions as selfish? You only think about yourself. You're such a small man. Then my father turned to Lauren. It seems you've done some terrible things too, going along with this man. What did you think of Kelly, fools? My father's loud voice echoed through the house. Lauren was trembling, perhaps terrified. My father stood up, glaring at the two of them in a commanding stance. Lauren, you've been causing problems at school too. I've looked into it. Through my father's connections, a detective agency investigated Lauren. It turned out she had been forcefully taking money from a girl at school. The victim was too scared to tell anyone, but my father had arranged to prepare a criminal complaint. Lauren, just like how she looked down on me, was doing the same at school. Lauren exclaimed, "That's a lie. Did she tell on me?" I felt like I saw Lauren's true nature, no remorse at all. She was only thinking about getting through this situation. John, you too. You've been embezzling money from the company. This was also discovered through the detective agency's investigation. John had been faking business trips. I initiated this investigation to strengthen my divorce case, but it unearthed shocking facts about both of them. Why would you even? Is it her? John reacted the same as Lauren, with no remorse. They were both unrepentant. They won't just face my punishment, they deserve consequences too. Then my mother spoke up. All right, the discussion is over. Sign the divorce papers and leave this house as soon as possible. John, sobbing, kept muttering, I don't want to, but he seemed to give up when my father handed him a pen. He sat down and signed the divorce papers. I glanced at the clock. It was almost 7:30 p.m. The last train leaves at 8:00 p.m. If they miss it, there won't be another train until the morning. In this small town, there are no taxis. If they don't catch the last train, John and Lauren won't make it to the demolition scheduled for tomorrow. They probably hadn't packed anything, thinking they could persuade me. As I hesitated to tell them, Lauren suddenly blurted out something unbelievable in a sulky tone. But this divorce was your idea, right, Dad? You should get alimony. Lauren, having been exposed, seemed to become defiant. Both my parents looked shocked. That's impossible. What you've done is essentially domestic violence, a crime. Lauren was momentarily taken aback, but then defiantly retorted, Show me the proof. I placed a notebook on the table. This is a diary I started keeping since I got married. Lauren glared at me with a scornful look. You don't even have a smartphone or computer. What kind of evidence could you possibly have? A diary is a valid form of evidence, you know, not just video, audio, or pictures. Lauren looked utterly astonished. That's right. Even the lawyer acknowledged it. This diary is substantial evidence. John and Lauren, seemingly resigned, hung their heads in defeat. I dramatically checked my watch. Well, you've missed the last train. You won't be able to get home tonight. My mother looked at John and Lauren with a smug expression. That's right, there are no taxis around here. I wonder if there's even a decent hotel nearby. All right, we're done here. Get out now. John and Lauren were hurried out of the house. From the second-floor balcony, I could see them rushing toward the station, probably shocked that the last train left so early. Watching their flustered figures, I felt the weight in my heart starting to lift. Some loose ends remained, but I felt a sense of closure. John and Lauren, having missed the last train, couldn't find a taxi and ended up walking for about an hour to find a hotel. When they got home the next day, the demolition was already underway, but they managed to salvage only their clothes. Unbeknownst to them, I had temporarily stored the furniture, appliances, and my belongings in a warehouse. Later, I received a report from my lawyer that the divorce, including the alimony claim, was finalized. John, initially reluctant to pay, complied after pressure was applied to his company. According to the detective agency, John was fired for embezzlement, and Lauren's scandal led to her expulsion from high school, ruining her chances for college. John, now jobless, could only afford to rent a small, old apartment far from the station. There he lives with Lauren, who dropped out of high school. Lauren blames everything on John, and he constantly criticizes her, leading to endless arguments, as reported by the detective agency. I had quit my part-time job at the real estate agency and was considering my next move when my father suggested I help with the family business. I took a job at his resort property management company. Living in a resort area is a big change from city life, but being surrounded by nature has been refreshing. I also got a dog, so I don't feel lonely living alone. For now, this dog is all the family I need. I plan to live a peaceful life, just me and my dog. That's the punishment for stealing my dad from me, Kelly said in the middle of our argument. She grabbed my arm and forcefully dragged me outside. Then she shoved me into a dirty, scary basement. I tried my best to resist, but younger people are just stronger. I was trapped inside the scary basement. In the dark and chilly basement, I started to feel ill. What should I do? How can I get out of here? Though I was panicking, I felt a slight weight in the back pocket of my jeans. Oh yeah, I have this. I quickly searched my pocket. My name is Olivia Anderson, and I'm 45 years old. I work as an administrative assistant at a company. The job isn't too complicated, but it's never boring. I find it fulfilling, and I love my coworkers because they are all kind-hearted. It might be rare, but I genuinely enjoy my job every day and don't find it burdensome. However, there was one thing that concerned me. I wasn't married. Seeing my friends get married and live happily ever after made me feel both envious and a bit sad. The thought of living the rest of my life alone was quite daunting. There were no prospects in sight, and I constantly wondered if any man would ever take an interest in me. Every day, I was consumed by thoughts of the future, filled with unease. A few years after I started having these thoughts, I finally got married. His name is James Anderson. He's 9 years older than me and works at one of our client companies. James had recently become the point of contact for the company I worked at, so he visited often. At first, we were both hesitant, but gradually we grew closer and started dating. After a few years, James and I were able to tie the knot. I was truly happy. I hoped with all my heart that we would build a happy home together. James has a 17-year-old daughter named Kelly from his previous marriage. He had been upfront about Kelly while we were dating, and I had met her several times. Kelly is very reserved and seems particularly fond of James. She was always by his side, glued to him. Seeing Kelly like that warmed my heart. I hoped that as we started living together, Kelly and I would become close. However, I didn't fully understand Kelly's true nature. After marrying James, I moved into the home he shared with Kelly. I quit my job to become a homemaker, doing everything I could to ensure that James and Kelly had a comfortable life. I prepared well-balanced meals and kept the house tidy. It might seem ordinary, but I believed it would make their lives more pleasant. Having a family was so different from living alone. Every little household chore became a lot more challenging. What comforted me during those times was a cat named Oliver. Oliver had always been at James's house. He was a bit chubby, and I heard he liked to sneak out, but I believed that as long as I was always at home, he wouldn't run away. Even though I faced many exhausting days, I always felt soothed admiring Oliver. Life after marriage had its challenges, but I felt much happier than when I was single. However, something weighed on my mind. I worried that Kelly might not think highly of me, leading her to ignore me. Even when I tried to start a conversation, Kelly would look at me with a confused expression and continue to ignore me. "Kelly, welcome home," I would say, but Kelly would only give me a fleeting glance and not respond. "How was school today? Did you have fun?" I asked, hoping to connect, but Kelly would remain silent, making me feel more isolated. I tried to keep the conversation going, but she still wouldn't say a word. After petting Oliver for a bit, she went straight to her room. Even though she kept ignoring me, I believed she just hadn't accepted me yet. She was at that challenging age of 17. If her father remarried and suddenly there's a new woman in the house who isn't her real mother, it's understandable that she would be wary. I had met Kelly a few times before James and I got married, but she just couldn't seem to warm up to me. I was racking my brain trying to figure out how to get Kelly to accept me, but despite my efforts, Kelly never warmed up to me. Ignoring me became her norm. She began openly avoiding me, and whenever she was around me, she had a constant look of displeasure on her face. When James was home, she'd talk a bit, probably to avoid upsetting him, as she adored him so much. Still, I thought it was better than not talking at all. It's been about 5 years since I married James. The distance between Kelly and me never seemed to close, and life felt kind of empty. Even after living together for 4 years, I didn't know what Kelly's favorite food was or what her hobbies were. The only thing I knew was that she adored Oliver. I had grown used to Kelly's gaze, which initially felt intimidating. When Kelly reached high school, she surprisingly started a conversation with me. "Hey." "Huh? What's up?" I was taken aback that Kelly spoke to me, and my voice unintentionally went up a notch. Was she finally opening up to me? What's she going to say? Various emotions bubbled up, but I silently waited for Kelly's words. However, what Kelly said was completely unexpected. "How long are you going to stay in this house?" "What?" "I'm asking how long you're planning to stay. Can you leave soon? You're in the way." Why would you say that? Being told out of the blue to leave was a shock. I was puzzled as to why she'd suddenly say that. Questions swirled in my head, but finding the words was challenging. Then Kelly explained her feelings, shedding light on her past actions. "Look, I love my dad. It was just the two of us, you know. Why did we suddenly have to live with an old woman like you acting all motherly? I just can't handle it." "What?" "I thought if I treated you like you weren't there, you'd break and divorce him. Was school fun? Seriously gross." I was bombarded with her hurtful words, leaving me speechless. "In front of Dad, you act all high and mighty, but it's been hard for me, you know. Maybe it's time you realized your worth, old lady." Seeing my sad face, Kelly seemed satisfied and flashed a smile. I had never seen Kelly look like that before as she walked away. All along, she had harbored such negative feelings towards me. Her hurtful words and the suggestion to reflect on my worth kept echoing in my head. Before I knew it, tears streamed down my face. What was the point of all the effort these past 5 years? I tried so hard to gain Kelly's approval, but in the end, she never accepted me. How should I approach Kelly now? I tried desperately to find an answer, but none came. From that day on, Kelly began hurling insults at me. "Olivia, I've always thought this, but you're really bad at cooking. It's seriously awful." "Oh really? I'm sorry. It's sad for Dad, you know. There are so many better people than you out there. With Dad's charm, he could remarry in a heartbeat." Kelly would say things like this, but she would put on a facade in front of James. "You know, Olivia's cooking is really delicious, right, Kelly?" "Yeah, it's yummy," Kelly would reply. It wasn't new, but seeing Kelly's quick switch always left me dumbfounded. "What's wrong, Olivia?" James would ask. "Olivia is just so happy. I feel happy yet not happy, such a complicated emotion that probably no one can understand." "I guess so," I replied, trying to maintain my composure. But Kelly lost all restraint and kept on with her tirades. Many times, I thought about breaking down and confiding in James, but I never could take that step. James always seemed so busy with his daily work. I just couldn't bring myself to burden him with my problems. I thought if I just endured, everything would be okay. Even if Kelly said she loved James, she might eventually move out and live alone. I saw it as just enduring until then. 6 years later, Kelly went on to college after graduating high school and later got a job at a company near home. Around the same time Kelly started working, James began taking on business trips. Initially, they were just for a day or two, but gradually the duration increased. It wasn't rare for him to be gone for 2 weeks or even an entire month. A few months after these trips began, Kelly's verbal abuse didn't stop. With James gone, it seemed Kelly had no filter. "The food's terrible. Can't you do something about it?" "Say something," Kelly demanded as she left her unfinished meal and quickly went to Oliver's place. I looked at the leftover food and gently put down my knife and fork. I had endured so much up to this point, but one day I finally reached my breaking point. Endless verbal abuse and a cold attitude every day. I was treated more like a maid than a mother. There wasn't any particular trigger. While Kelly was hurling insults at me as usual, I finally snapped. "Just get out already. You're so annoying." "Hey, you're always telling me I'm a bother and to leave." "Enough is enough," I shouted back. Kelly, not used to me talking back, was taken aback, but quickly responded with harsh words. "What? Why are you suddenly talking back? I seriously can't deal with this. I can't take it anymore. If you can't stand it, why don't you move out? You have a job, you have money, and you do fine on your own. I'm a homemaker. I can't just up and leave." Maybe I hit a nerve because she didn't respond. I could tell she was fuming. "Lost your tongue? What happened to all that energy just a moment ago?" I said. Just as I was about to get the upper hand, Kelly suddenly grabbed my arm, squeezing painfully tight. "Ouch!" I protested, but Kelly wasn't listening. She forcefully dragged me outside. "Hey!" I yelled as she pulled me toward a small storage theory basement. Without hesitation, she pushed me into it. Though I resisted, I was no match for her younger strength. In an instant, I was locked inside the scary basement. "What are you doing? Hey, let me out." I desperately banged on the wall, pleading with Kelly to release me, but she didn't seem to care. "I can't just let you out, even though you say so. Oh, by the way, I haven't told you, but I've got a trip planned for 4 days. Well, try to survive in that cramped theory basement." 4 days? Are you serious? Hey, what about Oliver? "Oliver has an automatic feeder, so he'll be fine," she said. I was stunned by her completely irresponsible comment. "You're being so irresponsible." "Shut up. Never come out of there again," she yelled back. That's the punishment for stealing my dad from me. Soon after, Kelly's presence disappeared. Inside the dark, cold, scary basement, I started feeling sick. What am I going to do? I can't bear to stay in here for 4 whole days. I started panicking even more, desperately banging on the walls, but it was no use. At that moment, I suddenly felt the weight in my pants pocket. Oh yeah, I have it. I quickly reached into my pocket and pulled out my smartphone. Such a lucky break. I called my nearby friend, Linda Blair. Oh hey Linda. Olivia, what's up? It's rare for you to call. I explained my situation and asked Linda to come help. In just a few minutes, Linda arrived. Are you okay? She asked as she opened the door, letting in the bright sunlight. Even though I'd only been in the scary basement for a few hours, it felt like days since I'd been outside. I thanked Linda, and she took me to her house. I didn't have my keys, and James was away on a business trip. Given all that, Linda told me I could stay at her place for as long as I needed. When I got out of the scary basement, I felt that Kelly was gone. She probably already left for her trip. The next thing I needed to do was contact James. I sent him a message, telling him what happened and where I was. I couldn't exactly ask him to come back, but deep down, I hoped he would. While chatting with Linda, I received a call from James. Hello, Olivia. Are you okay? He asked. James, I'm fine. Thanks. Listen, I'm heading home now. I'll come pick you up, so wait at your friend's place a bit longer, okay? Oh, what about your work? Forget work. Just know I'm on my way. I think it'll take about 5 hours, so hang tight. James seemed worried and was making the effort to come back. I thanked James and hung up. He said he's coming to pick me up. Can I stay here for another 5 hours or so? I asked Linda. Of course. Honestly, you have such a caring husband. I can kind of see why Kelly might be a bit jealous. Jealous? Yes, jealous. She was like, I love Dad, right? From what I've heard, she's probably jealous that you married her beloved dad. Is that so? Now that it was mentioned, it did seem like jealousy. Just because she's family doesn't mean you should hold back. Telling her off when needed is for Kelly's own good, you know. Okay, Linda's right, I thought. No matter how long we've lived together, acting impulsively in anger, like I did, isn't going to help Kelly. But how can I get through to her? I racked my brain for a solution and came up with a somewhat forceful plan. I immediately shared the plan with Linda. That's a pretty cool idea. Give it a shot, she said. I'll give it my best shot. Linda seemed amused and supported the idea. 2 hours later, James arrived at Linda's house and knocked on the door. Are you okay, Olivia? I'm fine, thank you, but you were at work. You matter more to me than any job, he said. James had decided to take a few days off from work. Is it okay for you to take time off like that? Yeah, they said they'll manage. I feel like I need to have a serious talk with Kelly. After that, I explained to James in detail what Kelly had done to me and how I ended up trapped in the storage basement. James listened intently and apologized. I'm sorry for not noticing. It's not just your fault. I didn't speak up, and Kelly was doing all this secretly. Still, I should have noticed something was off. I'm truly sorry. A heavy atmosphere lingered until Linda broke through it. Hey, why the long face? You're going to scold Kelly, right? Buck up. Linda's words somehow inspired me. You're right. Afterward, we thanked Linda and went home. I felt like I might have troubled James, but if this could make Kelly's behavior settle down, I'd be glad. When we got home and things calmed down a bit, I told James about my plan for Kelly and why I felt the need to go to such lengths. After pondering for a moment, James said, well, honestly, considering Kelly's past, it might take something drastic to get through to her. 2 days later, it was the day Kelly would return. Since we didn't know when she'd be back, we left the window closest to the basement open, keeping an eye out for her return. Around 5:00 p.m., a taxi stopped in front of our house, and Kelly stepped out with her luggage. The plan I put into action involved making the basement where I was supposedly locked up, seem ransacked and emit a rotting smell. Frankly, it's debatable if a human being would pass away in such conditions for 4 days. Moreover, even if the person did pass away, the stench of decay wouldn't arise immediately. However, I bet that Kelly wouldn't know such details. With a slight intention to shock her, I executed my plan and secretly watched Kelly. I noticed Kelly stopped in front of the scary basement. From her reaction, it seemed my plan was working. "Oh, what's that smell?" Kelly frowned at the stench coming from the scary basement. She suddenly looked alarmed and forcefully opened the door to the scary basement. Kelly was choking from the intense odor, but her expression quickly changed to shock as she saw the inside. "What's this? It's been ransacked." We approached the stunned Kelly and spoke up. "How was your trip?" "Olivia, why? Wait, Dad's here too." "Kelly, we need to talk," James said with the scariest expression I'd ever seen on his face. Seeing James's face, Kelly seemed to understand everything. She sat on the sofa, looking downcast. "You've done some terrible things to Olivia," James said. Kelly remained silent. "You panicked earlier, thinking that maybe Olivia had died in there." "That's not it." "Then why did you look so panicked in front of the scary basement?" After a pause, Kelly revealed something unexpected. "I thought Oliver was inside." "What? Oliver?" "After all, Oliver used to escape often before. I thought maybe he somehow got inside the scary basement and couldn't get out." "You should have been worried about Olivia after locking her up. What would have happened if I hadn't come back?" "I forgot about Olivia. I couldn't believe she forgot she locked me up. I was so shocked I couldn't find the words, but James was livid." "I never thought you'd be like this. I'm truly disappointed." "But wait," Kelly tried to justify herself, but James cut her off. "Wait for what? Going to make excuses? It's just that I felt like Olivia took Dad away from me." "You did something that could have had serious consequences just because you felt like it, and then you forgot about it. I never thought I raised you to be like this." With that, James sighed. He seemed to have completely given up on Kelly. Sensing this, Kelly stood up and started defending herself again. "Dad, don't say things like that. I just love you so much. If Olivia had just waited quietly for 4 days, I would have let her out. If Olivia hadn't called her friend, none of this would have happened. Dad didn't have to leave work early or take the day off. This is all your fault. Wouldn't it have been better if you hadn't obviously disliked me? Maybe if you hadn't locked me up, your misdeeds wouldn't have been discovered. You act on your own, but shove all the responsibility onto me." "What? Oh, by the way, it seems you were worried about Oliver. But didn't you once say that leaving Oliver alone for about 4 days was okay? That's just unthinkable. Do you realize you have a living creature under your care? I thought it would be fine. If you truly cared, leaving Oliver alone for 4 days wouldn't even be an option. By the way, do you even know what kind of food Oliver is currently eating? James and I have been taking care of him. I thought you loved Oliver, but now you only pet him when you feel like it and ignore him otherwise. It's so contradictory that it's almost funny." When I said what I was honestly thinking, Kelly blushed with anger. "Why do I have to be told that by you? You're a stranger, the one who took away my dad, so it's all your fault." "Hey, that's enough," James stepped in. Kelly, who couldn't understand what I was saying, snapped even more. "You've been spouting nothing but self-centered nonsense. How is it all Olivia's fault? I really can't understand what you're thinking," James said. "Daddy," Kelly cried, clinging to James. But James coldly looked down at her. "Just leave this house." "What? Why all of a sudden?" Kelly asked, shocked. "I can't keep someone in this house who, on a whim, endangers another's life and then forgets all about it and merrily goes about playing. Get out now." "But..." "Enough! You think you have the right to talk back. You really don't think of anyone but yourself." Kelly tried to persuade James, but he brushed her off. Desperate, she turned to me. "Olivia, please say something." "No, it's no use. Just leave," as James said. "Stop clinging to me." Just as he said, "You really only think about yourself." Hearing my words, Kelly hung her head with a resigned look. She dragged her suitcase and left the house. Her figure seemed lonely, but oddly enough, I didn't feel sorry for her at all. After Kelly left, the house was eerily quiet. The tension that had been building up for years finally seemed to dissipate, but it left an uncomfortable silence. James sat down heavily on the sofa, his face a mixture of anger, sadness, and exhaustion. "I'm sorry, Olivia. I should have seen what was happening. I should have done something sooner," James said, breaking the silence. "It's not your fault, James. Kelly hid her actions well, and I didn't speak up. We both share some of the blame," I replied, sitting next to him. "But still, I should have been more aware. As her father, I should have known," he sighed, rubbing his temples. "We can't change the past. We just have to move forward and hope Kelly learns from this," I said, trying to offer some comfort. James nodded, though he still looked troubled. "I'll reach out to her in a few days, once things have calmed down. Maybe some time apart will give her perspective." I agreed, hoping that this separation might indeed help Kelly reflect on her actions and understand the consequences of her behavior. For now, though, we had to focus on rebuilding our lives without the constant tension. The following days were a mix of relief and sadness. The house felt lighter without Kelly's presence, but there was also an emptiness. I kept myself busy with household chores and taking care of Oliver, who seemed to sense the change and stayed close to me. James took a few more days off work to be with me. We spent time talking about the future, making plans to strengthen our relationship, and discussing how to handle things if Kelly decided to come back. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, James turned to me and said, "Thank you for staying strong through all of this, Olivia. I know it hasn't been easy." "It hasn't been easy for you either, James. But we're in this together, and we'll get through it," I replied, squeezing his hand. We sat in comfortable silence, finding solace in each other's presence. Despite the turmoil of the past few days, I felt hopeful for the first time in a long while. 2 weeks later, James received a call from Kelly. She sounded calmer, though there was still a hint of defiance in her voice. They talked for a long time, and James assured her that he still loved her, but made it clear that her actions had serious consequences. Kelly agreed to seek counseling and apologized for her behavior. It was a small step, but a significant one. We all knew it would take time to rebuild trust, but this was a start. Life gradually returned to a new normal. James and I focused on strengthening our marriage and creating a supportive environment at home. Kelly stayed away for a while, giving herself the space to grow and reflect. As the months passed, the wounds began to heal. Kelly visited occasionally, and while there were still challenges, the atmosphere was less charged. We were cautiously optimistic, hoping that with time, we could all find a way to coexist peacefully and perhaps even become closer as a family. I received a lot of emails and calls from Kelly. She sent me messages like, "I'm sorry," and "Please forgive me." Looking at the volume and timing of those emails, and calls sending a bunch all at once or at random times, regardless of day or night, it really showed her self-centered side. She also sent updates about where she's been living and how she's been getting by. Apparently, she's been living in cheap motels while working. I thought she could just stay at a hotel or rent an apartment, but she seems picky about having separate bathrooms, wanting a clean place, and so on. She's having a hard time settling on a place, and even if she finds a good one, the rent is too high for her. She sent the same messages to James, who was stunned. He said, "It's either she really can't manage on her own, or she's just too selfish." But honestly, no matter the situation, I'd never let Kelly back into this house. I really wish she'd take a moment on her own to reflect on her actions. After Kelly left, our lives returned to peace. James still travels for work, but not as much as before, so we have more time to relax together. It's nice not having to be so careful around each other and to just relax. Kelly never listened no matter how many times we warned her, so in a way, I'm glad things turned out this way. Every day spent with James is pure joy. After finishing the housework and relaxing on the sofa, Oliver climbed onto my belly. He meowed and curled up to sleep. I hope for many more moments like this. As I petted Oliver, I found myself lost in these thoughts. The flood of messages from Kelly was overwhelming. Every day, she'd send me multiple emails, each one a mix of apologies and updates. "I'm really sorry. Please forgive me," one message read. Another detailed her struggles, explaining how she was living in a cheap motel because she couldn't find a place that met her standards within her budget. She complained about dirty bathrooms and high rents, showing her usual picky nature. It was clear she was having a tough time, but her self-centered approach made it hard to sympathize fully. She didn't seem to grasp the seriousness of what she had done or show any real understanding of the hurt she caused. The same pattern of messages went to James, who was equally stunned. He remarked, "It's either she really can't manage on her own, or she's just too selfish." Despite her situation, I knew I couldn't let Kelly back into our home. She needed time to reflect on her actions and understand the consequences. Bringing her back would only mean more chaos and tension, and I wasn't willing to go through that again. I hoped that this time apart would help her grow and change for the better. With Kelly gone, our home became a place of peace and relaxation. James's work trips became less frequent, giving us more time together. We no longer had to tiptoe around Kelly's moods and behavior. The quiet moments we shared were filled with comfort and joy. Whether we were having dinner, watching TV, or simply sitting in silence, there was a sense of harmony that had been missing for so long. One evening, after finishing my chores, I settled on the sofa with Oliver. The little cat, sensing my calm, jumped onto my belly, meowed softly, and curled up to sleep. I stroked his fur, feeling his gentle purring. It was in these simple moments that I found the greatest happiness. As I sat there, my mind wandered to the future. I imagined more days like this, filled with peace and contentment. I thought about how James and I could continue to strengthen our bond, making up for the lost time we spent dealing with Kelly's issues. I also hoped that Kelly, wherever she was, would find her way and learn to take responsibility for her actions. Despite the challenges we faced, I felt hopeful. Life had a way of throwing unexpected hurdles, but we had navigated through them and come out stronger. The future seemed bright, and I was ready to embrace it with open arms. Oliver stirred slightly, adjusting his position before settling back down. His warmth and softness were comforting reminders of the love and stability I now had. As I continued to pet him, I felt a sense of gratitude for these peaceful days and the strength to face whatever came next. The days turned into weeks, and our lives continued to improve. James's presence at home made a significant difference. We spent our weekends exploring new hobbies, going for long walks, and even planning a few short trips. It felt like a second honeymoon, a chance to reconnect and rebuild our lives together. Every so often, James would check in with Kelly, encouraging her to seek counseling and offering support from a distance. It was clear he still cared for her deeply, but he also understood the need for her to learn and grow on her own. Our conversations about Kelly were more hopeful than before, focusing on her potential for change rather than the mistakes of the past. In the quiet moments, I often reflected on how far we had come. The journey had been tough, but it had also brought James and me closer. We had learned to communicate better, to support each other more fully, and to cherish the peaceful moments we now enjoyed. Oliver remained a constant source of comfort and joy. His playful antics and affectionate nature were daily reminders of the simple pleasures in life. Whether he was chasing a toy or curling up next to us, he added a touch of warmth and love to our home. As the seasons changed, So did our outlook on life. We were no longer weighed down by the past, but were instead looking forward to a future filled with possibility. Each day was a new opportunity to build on the peace we had found and to create a life that was truly our own. In the end, it wasn't just about surviving the storm, but about finding the strength to thrive in its aftermath. With James by my side and the love we shared, I knew we could face anything that came our way. The future was bright, and I was ready to embrace it with all my heart.
I'm Mike, 51 years old, and I'm a novelist. Growing up in an orphanage, I always longed for a family. Eventually, I got married and had the family I always wanted. I was so happy and promised to cherish it forever. When I married my wife Alina, she had a 19-year-old daughter named Lily. Lily is now a respected editor at a publishing company. She has always loved novels, especially the works of the anonymous novelist Tham. She became an editor just to meet him. Tham's books are big hits, making him a best-selling author. There's a rumor that Tham will soon reveal his face in an exclusive interview and a paid online article at Lily's company. At the start of our marriage, not knowing how to connect, I focused on earning money for my daughter and becoming someone she could respect. I took care of household chores and never missed family outings and events. Even though I never knew a family growing up, I tried my best to give love to ours. But today, something unexpected happened. Today is my daughter's wedding day. Her partner, Brian, is into photography. Because of my busy schedule, I've only spoken to Brian via video calls and never met him in person, but he seems like a decent guy. Just before the wedding, I entered the bride's dressing room where my daughter and wife were. Suddenly, Lily said to me, "You old man with no blood relation, get out." She used to adore me as if we were blood related, and I thought we were close. I was confused by her words. "I've been looking forward to the day I could get revenge on you for bullying Mom. There's no seat for you today," she added. I had no idea what she was talking about. My wife just smirked upon hearing this. I was confused. Then my wife handed me a fill-out divorce form. I needed to think, so I left the dressing room to be alone. That's when I first met Brian. "Mike, hello." "Ah, yes. Can't believe we're meeting here. Is work okay?" "Work? Oh, well, yeah. It seemed Lily told Brian I couldn't attend the wedding because of work." I felt awkward about what had just happened. "Could we talk for a moment?" Then I learned a shocking truth. After hearing it, I decided to leave. I filed for divorce, took my things, and left the house. I rented an apartment and now live there alone. A month after the wedding, my wife called. "Hello, it's been a while. I thought it's about time we discussed dividing the assets. I've been a housewife with no income, so I'll need more than the usual amount. You need to buy the apartment we lived in and give it to me. I need a place to live." "I'd rather not," I instinctively replied. Her demanding tone irked me, especially after how she treated me a month ago. Did she really think I'd agree? I said no, didn't I? I refused to divide the property or buy the apartment. "You think it's okay for me to be left homeless? Well, it's your own doing, isn't it?" I told her something I learned from Brian. My wife panicked. "How do you know that? Why don't you stop dodging the question? This is seriously infuriating." "Ah, it's just the worst. Why does it always have to be me who ends up like this? Please, forget about it, Mike. Really, I'm begging you." Annoyed by my wife's wailing, I tried to continue the conversation. "How long will you keep tormenting Mom, you old man?" Lily." Suddenly, Lily took the phone. "Just get on with the property division already. I don't know what you're talking about, but you were bullying Mom, weren't you? Mom's crying, you know, and you always made her cry like this." "No, calm down, Lily. You see, making excuses is so lame. That's just unacceptable. Just pay Mom the property division and compensation for all the bullying." "You're the worst old man." "So I'm the worst old man, huh? When will you pay?" "Wait a minute. Right now I'm getting help from a lawyer. Let's discuss the future with the lawyer." "Why do you need a lawyer?" "Well, is that okay?" "Fine, whatever you say. We're still the victims here." We agreed to meet a week later at the law firm I had hired, and the call ended. Thus, the day of the showdown was set for a week later. I had a well-thought-out plan prepared over the past month. That's why I took the call and set the appointment for 2 weeks later. On the day, my wife, daughter, and I gathered at the office with the lawyer. The four of us sat around a single table. My wife and daughter had grim expressions and glared at me. Let's begin discussing the divorce and property division between Mike and Alina. However, before that, Mike has something he wants to ask Lily. Me? Yeah, I have one thing I want to ask you. Please go ahead, Mike. I don't want to. The lawyer was surprised by my daughter's sudden refusal. Why do you get to take the lead? After all, it's Dad who's the bad one here. I find this very unpleasant. Can you stop talking down to me? I agree. Lawyer, please get it together. Ah, yes, understood. The lawyer looked troubled. My daughter and Mike's assertive attitudes had him flustered. I spoke gently to my angry daughter. What I want to know is the part where you said it's originally my fault. What did I do wrong? What have I done? Please tell me one last time. When I pleaded with my head bowed, Lily was silent for a while before reluctantly telling me, Dad, you've been cheating all along, haven't you? The dad before you cheated and left us. I loved him so much. It hurt me so much to be betrayed so easily, choosing another woman over Mom, choosing his desires over his daughter. It all hurt. Seeing Mom cry every day was the hardest part. That's why I can't forgive cheating. I see. And what does that have to do with me? It has everything to do with you. You're cheating, aren't you? I knew because Mom told me you've been cheating for a long time. I thought you were different from that betrayer. I was confused by my daughter's story. I've never cheated, Lily. Calm down. I've never cheated, not even once. That's a lie. It's the truth. I swear to God I haven't. What exactly did Mom tell you? Glancing at my wife, she looked away uncomfortably like a child caught just before being scolded for a prank. She told me that Dad was always away from home because he was meeting his mistress. When the phone rings and he's whispering, it's because it's from his mistress. I saw it once, and the name of the caller was a woman's name. I knew what my daughter was talking about, but it wasn't cheating. I had another secret. As I took out an envelope from my bag, I asked my daughter, I heard about the previous dad cheating and running away before we got married from your mom. He's a terrible man. Hearing that story, I swore I'd never cheat. There's one thing I want you to confirm. What is it? Taking out a photo from the envelope, I showed it to her. It showed my wife and her ex-husband Eric walking arm in arm. What is this? Brian took this photo of Alina's cheating scene. Brian did? Lily and Alina were shocked. Brian really did a professional job. He captured both of their expressions clearly in the photo. The wrinkles on Alina's face were also perfectly visible, showing it was a recent photo. This was what Brian told me on the day of the wedding. When he went to a tourist spot for a photo shoot, he saw my wife with an unknown man. They were holding hands, clearly a couple. Brian, who knows my face, suspected an affair. Imagining the worst, he took a photo just in case. There's not just this photo. I also hired a detective agency and have photos of them entering a hotel. I laid out the copied photos on the table and explained them to my daughter. No way, that's really him. I've also looked into the ex-husband's background. Turns out he's a novelist just like me. Didn't he recently publish his second book? Mom, are these photos real? Mom, of all people, you cheated with him. Lily pressed her, and Alina became flustered. As Alina stayed silent, my daughter's anger heated up more and more. Alina kept quiet but after a while suddenly started crying profusely. These are fake images. Just because your affair was discovered, don't pin the same sin on me. Why do you always try to corner me like this? Please don't bully me anymore, Lily. Don't believe such random printed photos. Amidst the silence, the lawyer and I were taken aback. I had expected this reaction to the copies, so I tried to show the original photos. You really are a terrible old man. You don't know our struggles, and at the first sign of trouble, you lie to save yourself. You're the absolute worst. You're nothing to me, forever a stranger. Lily placed her hand on Alina's back and gently stroked it. Then she glared at me fiercely. She sided with Alina. Seeing this, I instinctively realized that going back to how things were was impossible. No matter what evidence I presented, she would side with Alina. Her words made me feel that. I see. Understood. With that, I made a call to a certain place. I had decided to use my last resort. Hello, it's me. I'm sorry to call suddenly, but I need that matter to be as if it never happened. Yes, that matter. I'm truly sorry. I'll explain more later. With that, I hung up the phone. Both of them looked at me curiously. What was that call about? Probably his mistress, Elena said coldly. Indeed, I did meet with Eric occasionally, but that was to talk about our daughter. It wasn't a romantic relationship. Is it so strange to talk to an ex-husband about his daughter? To call that cheating, how narrow-minded can you be, Elena? Seeing that Lily was on her side, Elena suddenly became more assertive. Well, indeed, Eric has been saying he wants to get back together, hasn't he? I wasn't interested before, but I've changed my mind. I've decided to get back together with Eric. Eric is a popular author currently promoting his second book. He is completely different from obscure authors like you. I've never seen your books in stores. Unlike you, he has status, money, and a blood relation with Lily. My wife boasted proudly. Then Lily's phone started ringing off the hook. She answered the phone in a panic. Hello, this is Lily speaking. Yes, what? Her face grew paler and paler. By the end of the call, she was as white as a ghost. What should I do? What happened? The novelist Tham, who is scheduled to reveal his face soon, has decided to cancel it. Huh? Isn't that something not to panic about? It is a reason to panic because it's been announced for months now. It was supposed to be revealed along with the new book. Even my boss was super excited about his first face reveal. What will the fans say now that it's suddenly cancelled? Oh, why all of a sudden? My words froze both of them. Yes, this was my secret. I am the novelist, Tham. Lily, you adore the novelist Tham, right? You heard me on the phone earlier. That was me talking to my editor. I said I'm canceling the face reveal. You both heard it, didn't you? No way. Are you saying you're Tham? That's impossible. Ignoring Lily's commotion, I answered the phone. Seeing the caller's name, I deliberately put it on speaker. Hello, is this Mike? Yes, what can I do for you, Mr. Boss? My daughter's eyes widened. She recognized the boss's voice. My wife also seemed to catch on and kept quiet. Sorry for the sudden contact. I heard you're canceling the face reveal scheduled with our company. Yes, that's correct. Why is that? I'll explain later. What do you mean later? Sorry, but please consider the face reveal canceled for now. Please reconsider for the sake of our company. Sorry, I'm in the middle of something. I'll call back later. Ignoring the boss's eagerness, I ended the call. Then I turned back to the two of them. Elena seemed not to fully understand, but Lily was completely frozen. Sorry for lying all this time. The part about barely making ends meet with columns was also a lie. In reality, I have a savings account where I've been depositing the money I earned. I plan to share it with you all someday. The salary I put into the family account was just a portion of it. What? Why would you keep something so important a secret? I kept it hidden because I didn't want to cause you any unnecessary trouble. Nowadays, it's too easy for someone to find out about your family or address. So, I was waiting for the right moment to tell you. At Lily's wedding, I planned to announce that I am Tom. I thought it would be the perfect surprise for you, who loves my work. When I found out you were a big fan of mine, it was the happiest moment of my life. It made all the effort I put into becoming a father you could be proud of worth it. The times I was away from home were due to deadlines or research trips. The calls were from my editor. Probably, the woman's name my daughter saw was the editor. That's when the boss approached me about revealing my face. I agree because it was your company, Lily. But now, we're strangers. There's no need to go that far anymore. As I said that, Lily suddenly bowed her head and apologized. I'm sorry. I never imagined Dad was Tom. I'm really sorry for the terrible things I said. My daughter apologized, desperately trying to make it up to me. An editor who judges by status can't be trusted, I said firmly. It might be harsh as a father, but we're strangers now. As an author, I firmly rejected my daughter. Her head drooped, and feeling a bit sorry for her, I decided to throw her a lifeline. Elena, why don't you introduce her to someone else? Didn't you talk about the popular author Eric? I've never met such an author at any New Year's party though. When I said that, she clearly looked frustrated. It seemed she finally realized I was a popular author from the incessant ringing of my phone. After a while of silence, Elena suddenly said with a smile, "Hey Mike, I've decided I won't get back together with Eric after all. I didn't know you were a famous author and wrongly suspected you of cheating. Sorry, that call was from your editor, right? I'm really sorry. From now on, I'll properly support you, Mike. So, let's start over, shall we?" Seeing my wife say this so nonchalantly, I regretted ever marrying such a woman. Blinded by status and money, she flipped her stance so easily. I found it even more unforgivable. I hate people who change their attitude based on status. I'll be filing for damages against you and Eric. What? It's only natural. You even lied to Lily. Don't think you'll be forgiven. And Lily, I'll explain everything to the boss. Why? Because it's easier that way. I've already told him you're my daughter after finding out I am Tom. I asked him to make sure you wouldn't be ostracized at work. Well, it might be for a different reason now. What have you done? It's the result of your own actions. I was wrong to keep silent, but you did something you shouldn't have. You acted like victims, belittled me, and changed your stance as soon as you found out about my position. Live your life reflecting on what you've done. With that, the discussion ended. Due to Elena's extravagant spending during our marriage, we settled without dividing assets. Afterward, Lily was fired, possibly because I detailed the whole ordeal to her boss. Since then, she's been struggling, and there seems to be a crisis in her marriage with Brian. I heard this when I went out for drinks with Brian. Elena, having remarried Eric, seems to be struggling with debt repayment every day. They probably resorted to loans to pay for the damages. Eric was already known as a struggling author with no savings. Moreover, with the bad rumors from this incident, it's unlikely any company would want to work with him again. I plan to travel abroad for research as soon as I finish my current work. The damages for my wife and Eric will be spent on enjoying luxury overseas. I was wrong to keep silent, but you did something you shouldn't have. You acted like victims, belittled me, and flipped your stance as soon as you found out about my position. Live your life reflecting on what you've done, I said, bringing an end to our heated discussion. Elena and Lily looked shocked and unsure how to respond. With those final words, I left the room, feeling a strange mix of relief and sorrow. During our marriage, Elena had been extravagant with her spending. Because of this, we settled without dividing assets. It was a relief to avoid the hassle of splitting everything, but it also highlighted the financial recklessness that had marked much of our time together. I moved forward, determined to start anew. Not long after, I heard that Lily was fired from her job. I suspect it was because I had detailed our family ordeal to her boss. It wasn't out of spite, I just wanted the truth to be known. Since losing her job, Lily has been struggling to find her footing. She and Brian are facing a crisis in their marriage. Brian, who seemed so promising, now appeared overwhelmed by their shared troubles. One evening, I went out for drinks with Brian. He looked worn out, his once bright demeanor dimmed by stress. Over a few drinks, he confided in me about the difficulties he and Lily were facing. Their marriage, once filled with hope, was now strained by financial pressures and lingering mistrust. I felt a pang of guilt, but also knew that the path they were on was a result of their own actions. Meanwhile, Elena remarried Eric, her ex-husband, but their reunion was far from a fairy tale. They were struggling with debt repayment every day. To pay for the damages I had claimed, they'd probably resorted to taking out loans. Eric, who was already known as a struggling author with no savings, was in a worse situation than ever. The bad rumors from this incident spread quickly, and it was unlikely any company would want to work with him again. His once promising career was now in ruins. As for me, I had plans of my own. Once I finished my current work, I planned to travel abroad for research. The damages I received from Elena and Eric would be spent on enjoying luxury overseas. It was a bittersweet ending to a tumultuous chapter of my life. I had loved my family deeply, but their betrayal and deceit left scars that only time and distance could heal. The money would allow me to live comfortably, but it was the freedom and the fresh start that I valued most. I looked forward to new adventures and opportunities, leaving behind the pain and complications of the past. It was time to embrace the future and make the most of my second chance at happiness.
When I sharply snapped back, Julie yelled at me, "Stop leeching off Dad." Hearing Julie's angry voice, I made up my mind that it was no use. I gave up in my heart. My feelings for Julie did not reach her. The emotional bond I was trying to establish with Julie was broken. Julie needs to reflect on her actions and face the consequences. I will tell her the truth. My name is Kelly, and I am 53 years old. I have been married to Jerry for 8 years. Both Jerry and I had been married before we met each other. I divorced my previous husband because he had an affair. One day when I came home, I found divorce papers from the lawyer in the mail. Since then, my ex-husband never returned. I didn't even know where he was, but I submitted the response to the court. We used to argue a lot and weren't very close, so I had expected this to happen someday. But it was so sudden that I couldn't eat and felt very depressed. I couldn't just sit around, so I threw myself into my work. I filled the void in my personal life with work. I worked frantically and studied marketing and management. Thanks to that, I didn't think about remarriage or dating, and before I knew it, I was 42. My family runs a small diner. It's a cozy place that serves set meals during the day. The food is good, plentiful, and affordable, making it popular with the townsfolk. It's a small town, but almost everyone must have eaten our food at least once. My father's chicken steak is the restaurant's specialty. When Jerry proposed to me, I was over the moon, but hearing that he had a daughter made me anxious about the future. Will this work out? The thought of suddenly becoming the mother of an adult daughter was crushing. My happy feelings completely deflated. Now my heart feels heavy and dark. That's when I got a text from Jerry saying, "No rush on your response." I meant every word I said earlier. His calm reply soothed my anxious heart like a receding tide. Yes, Jerry is serious and kind. He would support me through anything. As for his daughter Julie, even though she's a concern, she's an adult and won't act like a child. She will understand about Jerry and me. I decided to accept Jerry's proposal. When I told Jerry I would accept his proposal, he was overjoyed. Seeing Jerry express his happiness so openly made me truly glad to have chosen to be with him. Since we were both remarrying, we just had a small dinner to introduce each other to our families. But Julie was in the worst mood I had ever seen. She was irritable and took out her feelings on the staff, saying, "So annoying, come on, bring the next dish." I asked her to calm down, and she snapped back, "Shut up, don't order me around, old lady." The term old lady took my breath away. I had met Julie a few times before, but this was the first time things had turned out this way. Is this Julie's true nature? After the introduction party, I discussed Julie's behavior with Jerry. Perhaps we should consider postponing the marriage, I suggested. Wouldn't it be better if Julie sorted out her feelings first? Jerry shook his head. Indeed, Julie's attitude today was problematic, but she has already moved out of the house, and we won't be seeing her every day. Being tied down by an independent daughter forever doesn't seem right to me. Jerry suggested that being confined during today's introduction party might have irritated Julie. Normally, Julie is quiet and not the kind to get angry like that. Please give Julie a chance. She's really a good kid at heart, he encouraged. Encouraged by Jerry's words, I decided to proceed with the marriage. I was determined to marry Jerry and live my life with him. Yet every time I saw Julie, I was reminded of that incident, which only increased my anxiety. I started living with Jerry, and we bought an apartment halfway between my company and Jerry's. Julie was living alone in an apartment near her company, so it was just Jerry and me living together. The first 3 years passed without any problems, and we were happy. The only tough part was during the holiday season when we met Julie, but other than that, it was peaceful. However, in the 5th year of our marriage, we faced a big problem. Julie moved in with us because her apartment was undergoing major renovations. She said the noise and the workers coming and going were too much, so she moved in with us. I had a bad feeling about it, and I was right. We turned a room we used as a storeroom into Julie's room. She complained that it was cramped and poorly lit, but we convinced her to tolerate it. For the moving-in celebration, we decided to have pizza. When I was about to order our usual delivery, Julie went ahead and placed an order from a famous steakhouse. The dishes from there are delicious but very expensive, about 4 times more than the food we usually eat. I was about to refuse, but Jerry gave me a look. I've recently realized that Jerry is lenient with Julie. He tends to give in to her whims, and perhaps that's why she gets upset easily when things don't go her way. She generally has an attitude and seems to think of the staff in any store as her servants. I've never seen Julie use words like "excuse me" or "thank you" to the staff, or even to me. Living with Julie was like that. I was feeling down, but this was too much to worry about from the start. In the end, we ordered the food Julie wanted. When the dishes arrived, Julie complained that it was late. Our order was supposed to be refused at first due to the sudden order, but Julie insisted and made them deliver. She complained that they were late. I apologized profusely to the delivery person while receiving the dishes. The payment, of course, came from our wallet. As I checked the contents of the 3 delivery boxes, I felt even more stressed. I found 2 assortments of appetizers and steaks and 1 box of hot dogs. Puzzled, I laid out the food on the table and began preparing drinks and soup. Julie and Jerry took their seats. Julie poured beer for Jerry, raised her glass with his, and began to drink. To Julie, I must be nothing more than a servant or maid. Jerry doesn't correct her. Is something going on? When I sat down at the dining table, in front of me was the box of hot dogs. I let out a soft and Julie looked at me with a smug half-smile. "That should be enough for you," she said with a snort, then began eating the appetizers. I had some vegetable sticks while Julie enjoyed the shrimp cocktail, fresh salad, and chicken wings. It was a clear act of spite from Julie towards me. I thought this would surely anger Jerry, but all he did was sigh as he looked at Julie. He offered his box of appetizers to me, saying, "Have some of this." I nodded slightly and took some portions from Jerry. I was tempted to scold Julie but restrained myself, considering that a confrontation on the first day might complicate our future living together. Moreover, I felt like I had taken Jerry away from Julie. Living with Julie started in the worst possible way. Jerry doesn't talk much about Julie. Whenever I ask about her, he just says, "She's at a difficult age, please forgive her." While working, helping out at my parents' house, studying, and doing household chores, I was already swamped. Now I had to take care of Julie on top of everything. Julie is simply selfish. She does nothing around the house. It's hard to believe she lived alone before. Moreover, Julie's requests are incredibly bothersome. Even a single piece of clothing came with a litany of instructions. Which items required dry cleaning, which should be hand-washed, and which needed air drying. When it comes to food, she specifies supermarkets and even the origin of the products. I usually plan meals based on sales and featured items at the supermarket, but that's not possible when accommodating Julie's preferences. I found myself planning meals while also checking recipes on the internet. As a result, our household expenses have nearly doubled. Julie doesn't contribute financially to the household at all. Even when I talk to Jerry about it, he just says, "Please bear with it." Unwilling to stir up unnecessary conflict, I chose to tolerate the situation. I reluctantly decided to cut back on work. I was valued and had high expectations at my company, with even hints of a possible executive position in the future. But now, family comes first. I applied for reduced working hours at the company. This decision will likely end any chance of career advancement, but I did it for Jerry and Julie. I've decided to endure. While shopping for dinner at the supermarket after work, I received a call from my mother. She told me that my father had been hospitalized. "What? Dad's in the hospital," I said. After hanging up, I hurried to the hospital. Our family home is relatively close by, so I arrived in about an hour. In the hospital room, My father was watching a baseball game on TV with earphones in. Noticing me, he took out his earphones and smiled. "Mom just exaggerated over the phone," he said with a laugh. Relieved, my legs gave way, and I slumped to the floor. "My back's been hurting," my father explained. "It seems years of standing at work have taken a toll on it. I've decided to go through with the surgery," he told me with a laugh. At that moment of relief, I remembered something important. I hadn't informed Jerry or Julie about any of this. I pulled out my cell phone from my shopping bag and saw countless missed calls from Julie. My heart was pounding as I hurriedly called her back. Julie's voice sounded displeased. "Where are you, and what are you doing? Hurry back and make my dinner," she demanded. I apologized reflexively. "I'm sorry, my dad's been hospitalized." Julie was silent for a moment, but then started scolding me sharply. "Huh? Your dad? Your dad really?" Julie's tone became vulgar and aggressive. I felt intimidated and shrank back. In a small voice, I replied, "Yes, he was suddenly hospitalized." "And what does that have to do with my dinner?" Julie's reasoning was becoming absurd. "You're my mother, right? Understand it's a parent's job to make meals for their child." This might be understandable if Julie were still in elementary or middle school, but Julie is 25 and has lived alone before. She's fully an adult. For such an adult to demand meals from a parent is beyond harassment. I felt compelled to stand up for myself. I'm not good with Julie's assertive tone or harsh words. Although I was scared of being yelled at, I decided to confront her. "Is it wrong to worry about my dad?" "You should understand," I said. I could hear Julie gasp over the phone. "Shut up! Don't talk back to me," she snapped, clearly taken aback. "If it were your dad, you'd rush to his side, wouldn't you?" Julie fell silent. Maybe she was imagining if it were Jerry who had been suddenly hospitalized. Surely Julie would be worried if something happened to Jerry. That's what I thought. However, Julie's response was shocking. "Huh, I'd ignore it if my dad was hospitalized," she said. I was speechless. I wanted to believe it was a lie. "Anyway," I said, "sorry, but you'll need to eat out today," and hung up. This call made one thing clear to me. Julie doesn't see me as her mother. In fact, she doesn't even see me as a person. She must think of me as a mechanical servant or a slave. Otherwise, she couldn't say such heartless things. It's saddening, but I can't just dwell on sadness. Things can't go on like this. I felt a strong need to take action. Even after my father is discharged, he won't be able to work as before. There's only so much my mother can do. I need to address the situation at my family's home quickly. Balancing my family's needs, taking care of Julie, household chores, and work was impossible. I decided to resign from my job. Though the company tried hard to retain me, there was no other way. Just as my father was discharged and we managed to reopen our shop, something happened to Jerry. He ended up being hospitalized and his condition was quite severe. Dr. Richard, the chief physician, said he might never be discharged. When I informed Julie of Jerry's condition, she reacted nonchalantly and said something unbelievable. "Does this mean it's going to cost a lot of money?" Julie seemed more concerned about money than Jerry's health. What could this mean? I couldn't understand her reasoning. Does Julie not care about Jerry at all? This is not the time to worry about money. Do you understand? I became emotional and retorted. "I know that, but if we don't have money, we'll be in trouble, won't we?" Julie pulled out her cell phone and started making a call. "Hello, Uncle David? Actually, Dad is sick and has been hospitalized," she said in an uncomfortably sweet tone. "I was hoping you could help with the hospital bills." Julie schemed on the phone, trying to get her uncle to pay for the expenses. "Then you can ask Mom about the rest." After ending the call, Julie gave me a cold smile, sending a chill down my spine. "So you'll have to talk things over with Uncle David," she said, humming a tune as she went back to her room. I was still reeling from Jerry's hospitalization when Julie's actions left me stunned. After a while, I received a call from my brother-in-law. I explained Jerry's condition and the outlook for the future. I broke down crying midway, but managed to explain everything. I also assured him that I would take care of the hospital bills, so he shouldn't worry. After hanging up, I slapped my cheeks with both hands to psych myself up. I can't afford to mope around over this. But bad things continued to happen. After our marriage, Jerry was entrusted with managing his parents' company. However, the business began to struggle. The cost of raw materials had been rising for years, leading to higher purchase prices and reduced profits. The company was so strapped that it couldn't afford to pay employees' salaries. In the past, Jerry's family used to help my family's business, but now the roles were reversed, and my family was supporting Jerry's company. With the business in trouble, Jerry had cut his own salary, so I was paying for the hospital bills with my salary. Most of the insurance policies list the company as the beneficiary. Ironically, Jerry's insurance money gave the company a bit of a breather during these hard times. In such a difficult time, Julie lashed out at me. The reason was a photo on my phone of a dining scene at a restaurant. Don't mess around using other people's money for such luxury. Julie berated me with vulgar language and an aggressive tone. The photo was from a time I was asked to sample dishes at a restaurant I visited for work. A client took the photo and sent it to me, but unfortunately, it backfired. "You're using our money for stuff like this." Julie's words made me realize something. It seems she's under the impression that I'm living off Jerry's money. The reality is quite the opposite. Currently, I'm the one providing for most of our household expenses. I've repaid all the money. I borrowed from Jerry in the past with interest. Julie's anger didn't subside. It seemed futile to say anything at the moment. Julie's command, "Get out," compelled me to leave the house. I left a single piece of paper on the dining table and chose to spend the night at a hotel. It would be useless to explain anything to Julie. If I tried to explain, she might start depending on my money, and I wanted to avoid that. I resolved to stick to my plan and take appropriate action. I made a promise to myself. I went to visit Jerry's hospital room. I visit every day, but today felt special. Julie didn't come today either. Jerry gave me a sad smile, and his smile always reassured me. "I'm sorry for being so inadequate," I said. Jerry shook his head. "It's not that. It's my fault Julie turned out this way because of me." Jerry began to share something he hadn't told me about Julie before. Julie is not Jerry's biological child. His ex-wife had an affair, and Julie was the result. Jerry found out just before his ex-wife passed away. Hearing this, Jerry felt an indescribable anger. The person most at fault was lying in bed, soon to pass away, and he couldn't direct his anger anywhere. Julie wasn't to blame, and she still thinks of Jerry as her real father. His ex-wife passed away without revealing anything about the other man involved. Jerry was left with unresolved anger. He couldn't treat Julie the same way as before and ended up pushing her away. For Julie, her mother suddenly disappeared, and her father became distant. It's no surprise her personality became twisted. From that point on, Julie ceased to trust anyone, viewing Jerry solely as a financial resource. Since then, I've become nothing but an ATM to Julie, Jerry said with a sad smile. Julie's selfishness is excessive, and her disdain for others is over the top. Julie found out I wasn't her real father when she was in high school, Jerry said. She didn't seem that surprised. She must have had her suspicions, he added with a sarcastic smile. I explained to Jerry what I was about to do. Initially, he looked reluctant, his expression conveying a sense of skepticism, as if questioning, "Is all that really necessary? I've already looked into it. If I don't do it, things could get even worse." I told him, "If I don't, someone else surely will." Jerry closed his eyes, deep in thought. I decided to wait quietly. After a while, Jerry opened his eyes. "All right, I'll leave it to you." I held Jerry's hand. His hand felt bony and had become much smaller. I struggled to hold back my tears, forcing a smile. I left the hospital room and stepped into the corridor where I saw Dr. Richard. I handed him a scientific magazine showcasing the latest medical technologies. "Please help my husband," I said to him and left the hospital. Now it was just a matter of taking action. To psych myself up, I slapped both of my cheeks sharply with my hands. This always helped me focus. After spending a night at a hotel, I checked my cell phone for messages and returned home before noon the next day. I could hear the sound of the TV and Julie's laughter coming from the living room. Julie was watching TV and laughing heartily. It was a rare sight. She's usually in a foul mood, but today she seemed happy. Looking around, I noticed that several things were missing. The photos of Jerry and me, souvenirs from our trips, and other decorative items were gone. Some things are missing, I said to myself, prompting a reaction from Julie. "Oh, I threw them out, your stuff," she said. Shocked, I entered the bedroom. The room was empty. No computer, no TV, no stereo, even the bed and furniture were gone. The closet was empty too. I returned to the living room and confronted Julie. "What's the meaning of this?" I demanded. Julie looked at me with disdain while lying on the sofa. "They were needless, so I disposed of them," she said. I put my hands on my hips, visibly angry. "Needless? What are you going to do?" When I raised my voice, Julie made a face of disgust, averted her gaze, and sighed dramatically. "I'm tired of living with you," she said. Julie's words were outrageous. "What do you mean by that?" "This home belongs to Jerry and me," I retorted sharply. Julie's face turned sour. "Stop leeching off Dad," she said. "Leeching? What could she possibly mean by that?" Julie suddenly brought up something unexpected. Come to think of it, she had mentioned our money before. Could Julie be under some grand misunderstanding? As I stood there unable to respond, Julie's irritation grew. "Do I have to spell it out for you? I'm saying stop depending on Dad's money," she said. Julie and I never got along well, but I had always tried to be considerate towards her. I complied with all of Julie's requests, even those that felt like harassment, because I wanted to get along with her. As the second wife, I've always strived to be kind and loving. Feeling somewhat guilty, I still received such treatment in return. I wasn't leeching off anyone. I was just trying to do everything for Julie. I wanted to tell her this, but the words wouldn't come. While I struggled to speak, Julie added insult to injury. "Dad's not coming back anyway, so there's no reason for you to be here." "That's not true," I replied. Julie raised her voice. "Shut up. I don't want to hear your excuses." Hearing her hysterical voice, I made up my mind. It was no use. I realized I gave up in my heart. My feelings for Julie did not reach her. The emotional bond I was trying to build with her was broken. I felt my feelings for Julie fading. Just a moment ago, I thought of us as family, but now we're complete strangers. From the beginning, it was clear Julie was only using me for her own convenience. That's why she could so boldly drive me away. Julie needs to reflect on her actions and face the consequences. I resolved to confront Julie with the truth. Determined, I locked eyes with Julie. Julie looked back at me with fearful eyes. "What? Got a problem?" "No, I'll leave, just as you wish," I said. I checked other rooms, the bathroom, and the toilet. "Don't bother looking. Everything's gone." "I had it picked up by a collection service," Julie said. I picked up a flyer from the living room. "That's the place I asked them," she added. The flyer was just there conveniently. This was something I had left in the living room. I almost let out a laugh at Julie's shallowness. Forcing a stern face, I glared at Julie. "I hope you come to realize the gravity of your actions." With those parting words, I immediately left the house. As soon as I stepped out of the apartment, I contacted the waste collection service that had emailed me in the morning. The collection service had kept my belongings in storage. Not only did they store them, but they also moved them into the storage unit I had rented. I thanked them politely over the phone before hanging up. I intentionally left that flyer on the living room table. I thought Julie might just do something like that, given her personality. Seeking out a collection agency would have likely been too bothersome for her. I figured that if a flyer for a junk removal service was readily available on the table, Julie might be inclined to call the listed number. I was willing to forgive her if she didn't go that far, but Julie went through with it. My patience finally ran out. I went to the hospital to see Jerry. It seemed Jerry was getting some explanation from Dr. Richard when I entered the room. Dr. Richard left as I walked in. Jerry's face was unusually happy. It was a shame I had to bring up such a topic when he was in a good mood. Reluctantly, I shared the earlier incident with Jerry. His face immediately clouded over. "But it can't be helped, right?" I said, gently holding Jerry's thin hand. "Thank you for understanding," Jerry replied. In fact, I had already decided where I was moving to. Anticipating this situation, I had prepared a new place. Even if I wasn't kicked out, there was a chance I would leave on my own. Either way, I needed a new place. I planned to move and start a new life with a fresh mindset. It's just that things are happening a bit sooner than planned. Jerry smiled gently, comforting me. To be honest, being kicked out by Julie didn't really put me in a bind. It just moved my plans up by a couple of weeks. But now I'd have to live in a hotel for 3 weeks. Maybe it's my frugality that makes me think it's a waste. Regardless, I resolved in my heart to be prepared for whatever Julie might do next. I started taking the actions I had prepared for in advance. Once the move was successfully completed and I had settled down, Julie called me. As soon as I answered, Julie's loud voice filled my ear. "You took our money, didn't you?" she accused. I played dumb and asked, "Huh, what are you talking about?" My faint ignorance seemed to infuriate Julie further. "Don't play dumb. It's about Dad's hospital bills. The hospital just called saying they need to be paid." I was expecting this call around now. "Oh, that," I replied in a deliberately relaxed tone. I purposely hesitated and sighed. "You should pay it. It's not my concern anymore. You have the living expenses that Dad transferred, right? Just pay it out of that." "That's true, but I don't have the bank book or ATM card for that account," Julie said. Julie should have the insurance documents and bank books, but the account balance is almost empty. "The balance is gone. You must have taken it," she accused desperately. The more heated Julie became, the more calmly I behaved. "I didn't take it," I said. I said with a composed face, "Don't lie. Who else could have used it?" I struggled to suppress my laughter. Ever since Jerry's salary significantly decreased, there has hardly been any money in that account. A simple bank statement update would reveal this, but Julie probably hadn't done that. There was just very little money to begin with. Even with this explanation, Julie wasn't satisfied. "If you can't pay the hospital bills, you should just use your own salary," I suggested. Julie remained silent. Given Julie's spendthrift nature, it's unlikely she has any savings. She tends to spend her salary as soon as she gets it. I knew how much Julie earned because Jerry had previously informed me about her earnings. Moreover, Jerry even used to give Julie an allowance. "You're old enough to have some savings, aren't you?" I said. I could almost hear Julie grinding her teeth. After a long silence, so long I thought the call had dropped, Julie suddenly raised her voice. "What's wrong with me spending the money I earned?" Julie continued to rant. "You're the one who spent all the money Dad gave us, aren't you?" I could hear Julie's heavy breathing. The farce was over, so I got to the heart of the matter. "If it's not savings, then use the money you acquired dishonestly," I said. I heard a thud. It seemed Julie dropped her cell phone, probably too shocked to keep a grip on it. "How did you know about that?" Julie didn't deny it. She had just admitted to the wrongdoing. There was no escaping it now. "We will discuss the details when we meet," I told Julie and hung up. I had sent the meeting place via email. I also attached the audio file of Julie saying, "How did you know about that?" to the email. I had recorded the conversation with Julie. It's always wise to have evidence on hand. I had arranged a meeting with Julie, and all that was left was to present my evidence. The next day, Julie showed up at the agreed meeting place. It was the entrance to the apartment building where I lived. I called out to Julie. Julie looked up, surprised. Here? Yes, I sent you the address, didn't I? Julie craned her neck to look up. You live in this tower? She asked, staring at the tallest and most expensive apartment building in the area. An Italian sports car was even parked at the entrance. This place is worth over $1 million, isn't it? Julie muttered. I led the astonished Julie to my apartment, which is close to the top floor. Even with the high-speed elevator, it takes a while to reach the top. During the ride, Julie was nervously biting her nails and trembling, clearly sensing something bad was about to happen. Upon arriving, I unlocked the door with my cell phone, which also serves as a key. Julie looked at me with a surprised expression. I entered the room without minding her reaction. The living room offers a panoramic view. The apartment we used to live in looks tiny from up here. The living room is spacious with a generous layout, and the kitchen is large. I had Julie sit on the sofa. She was clutching her bag tightly, clearly tense. I made some coffee and handed it to her. Julie took the cup with a rattling sound, trying not to drop it. It's too spacious. It's unsettling, I said mockingly, smiling at Julie. She remained silent. I've been preparing to live here for a while, I continued. Julie must have thought of me as a parasite living off Jerry. No wonder she was shocked. Shall we start the discussion then? This is Scott, my lawyer. I introduced Scott, who was waiting in the back, to Julie. She seemed too overwhelmed to even notice Scott. Her gaze was unsettled, darting around nervously. Ignoring Julie's state, Scott began laying out documents on the table. Julie barely responded to my attempts to engage her in conversation, distracted by the room. Just when I thought we couldn't have a proper discussion, Julie mumbled, How could you afford such a penthouse? Figuring she was curious, I answered, Julie, I just bought it the regular way. Don't lie. How could you afford it? She asked. I had the income to afford it. As my family's small restaurant began to recover, I not only advised but also got actively involved in its management. The business flourished in an exciting way, and I quit my corporate job as I got busier. Julie likely assumed I had become merely a housewife after leaving my job. We turned the small restaurant into a corporation, and I became an executive. The business was doing well, expanding into multiple outlets like a specialty grilled chicken restaurant and a fine dining place. That's why I could easily afford this penthouse apartment, I explained. I earned that much. I shared the story of my family's business. Julie only knew that Jerry had helped when my family's restaurant was struggling. I then told her how my family's business eventually came to support Jerry's company, and that I had become an executive. Hearing my story, Julie slumped in defeat. I wondered if Julie was feeling regret, but she suddenly looked up and said something unexpected. All right, I'll live here too. Let's make up. What is she talking about? I thought, but I just silently stared at Julie. There's enough space here for my room too, right? She asked. I glared at Julie with a cold look. Save your dreaming for when you're actually asleep. She was completely unfazed by my sarcasm. I'm serious, she said. That's when Scott cleared his throat. He probably couldn't bear to go along with Julie's absurd statements any longer. Scott handed Julie a bill. Looking at the bill, Julie's face turned pale, her hands trembled, and sweat formed on her forehead. This is a fraudulent bill. It's a phantom charge, Scott stated. After graduating from college, Julie had worked at Jerry's company. However, she conspired with a client company to make unjust charges to the company. The illicit gains were shared with the accomplice from the client company. To set Julie up, I had hired a detective and conducted a thorough investigation. An individual from the client company who conspired with Julie leaked information to Scott. I immediately consulted with my in-laws, who had stepped down from the presidency to become chairpersons, about the matter. They were furious and promised appropriate punishment. Embezzlement on the job is quite the crime indeed, Scott added. If convicted of fraud, you could face up to 11 years in prison, not to mention civil damages. Wait a minute, there must be some mistake. Julie desperately tried to deny it. However, the evidence was complete, and the accomplice had confessed. Admit it. The charges against you are only getting heavier, Scott said. Just as I thought, Julie was gripping the bill tightly enough to tear it. She suddenly stood up. I'm sorry, Julie apologized. Sorry doesn't cut it, I spoke in a flat, emotionless voice. Especially since you've done it habitually, it's deemed extremely malicious. Julie collapsed to the floor and began to apologize. Please forgive me, Julie sobbed. No chance, I replied coldly. Her face became a mess of tears, and her usually perfect makeup was completely ruined. If things continue this way, losing your job will be the least of your worries. You might even get arrested. Julie's apologies wouldn't earn her forgiveness. Her tears and runny nose left dark stains on the carpet. Please forgive me. Just staying silent about it is enough, she pleaded. I turned my back on Julie, who kept apologizing. This isn't just between you and me, I said. Julie seemed unable to let go and made an outrageous offer. Then I'll give you money. I'll charge the company again and give you that money. I sighed deeply and pressed my hand to my forehead. Nothing I said would make a difference now. Julie had no intention of repenting. She was solely focused on navigating her way out of the predicament. There's no helping you. You need to be properly judged, I said, revealing the voice recorder in my hand. Julie realized she had made an outrageous proposal. She trembled, covering her mouth with her hand. I'll submit this as evidence to the police, I declared. Julie kept her head down, as if something had been drained from her. Scott and I then escorted Julie out of the room. Leaning against the wall, she staggered toward the elevator. Once Scott had departed, I collapsed into the depths of the sofa, exhausted. It was finally over. I reported the outcome to Jerry via email. As planned, Julie was criminally charged by the company. She was arrested, and the employee from the partner company was indicted. While on bail, Julie had been dating this employee. Whether Julie really had romantic feelings is unclear. It's highly possible she pretended to like him just to use him. Julie is now detained in a holding cell awaiting trial. She also faces a lawsuit for damages from the company. Julie was disliked at the company, and perhaps this was a form of retribution. Being the president's daughter, she was exceedingly unpopular among the employees. She also had a haughty attitude toward clients, which negatively impacted performance. Not only was her attitude presumptuous, but Julie also made many mistakes. There were numerous complaints, but no one dared to criticize her because she was the president's daughter. This is what I heard from Jerry. Jerry is still hospitalized, focusing on his treatment. He entrusted the presidency to Gary, his reliable executive vice president. This decision had been made quite a while ago. With Julie gone, the transition proceeded smoothly. Jerry is fighting his illness despite the challenges in getting discharged. A pioneering treatment available in France offered new hope. Holding the published scientific journal, Dr. Richard and I had many discussions. Dr. Richard understood and agreed, and Jerry will soon go to France for treatment. Of course, it's private healthcare not covered by insurance. I'm not worried about the treatment costs. If necessary, I can just sell the penthouse. Jerry will surely recover, and he will surely smile at me with that gentle smile again. I can hardly wait for that day.
My stepmother Olivia disliked me a lot. She saw me not as a stepson, but as an unwanted reminder of her husband's previous life. Filled with resentment, she secretly plotted with a rich woman who had moved in nearby. Their secret plan was to sell me along with the farm, cutting all her ties to my existence. However, Fake had different ideas, and a surprising turn of events changed everything. leading to a series of unforeseen events that altered my life forever. Hello, my name is Jack, and I'm going to share a story that weaves through deep deception and paths of redemption. My story starts in the small town of Bern, Switzerland, where I lived on a large chicken farm. To an outsider, it might have looked charming, but for me, it was a battlefield. I was just 12 years old, but life had already forced me to take on the responsibilities of an adult. My mother died when I was born, an event that shaped my whole life. My father, overwhelmed with sadness and alcohol, found comfort in drinking rather than in being there for the son who needed him. Not long after, he brought Olivia into our lives. To her, I was merely a living reminder of a past she wanted to forget. Our home, if you could call it that, was sustained by the little money we made from our chicken farm. We sold eggs and chickens to make ends meet, but often, my father wasted our earnings at Joe's Tavern, leaving us on the edge of poverty. Every morning, as the sun cast long shadows over the dewy fields, I would be out feeding the chickens and collecting eggs while the rest of the world was still asleep. My small hands, rough and calloused, carried the weight of a life I never chose. School became a distant memory, a place for other children, not for someone who had to keep a farm running. But our story takes a darker turn the day Olivia's true nature came to light. I remember overhearing her one chilly morning. Her voice was sharp and secretive as she talked to someone on the phone about a solution to her problems. I didn't understand it then, but I felt a chill that wasn't from the cold. That's when Mrs. Patrick entered our lives. A widow, rich and mysterious, she had recently moved into a large estate near our farm. Her arrival was the talk of the town, but for Olivia, it was an opportunity. I later learned that Olivia saw a chance to get rid of me by making a deal with Mrs. Patrick. I first met Mrs. Patrick one evening when the sky was painted with streaks of crimson and purple. She came to our farm pretending to be interested in buying it. Her eyes, sharp and assessing, seemed to see more than what was obvious. There was a kindness in her manner, but her presence made me feel uneasy. "Jack, show Mrs. Patrick around the farm," Olivia ordered, her voice dripping with a sweetness that didn't reach her eyes. As I led Mrs. Patrick around, showing her the coops and the feed sheds, her questions dug deeper than I expected. "You manage all this on your own, Jack?" she asked, her voice tinged with something I couldn't quite place. Was it concern or curiosity? "Yes, ma'am, it's a lot of work, but I manage," I replied, trying to hide the tiredness in my voice as clear as the dirt on my boots. Mrs. Patrick looked at me a bit longer than needed, her eyes full of deep thoughts. As we walked back to the house, the setting sun stretched long shadows across the path, making it look eerie and twisted. That night, as I lay in bed listening to the distant call of an owl, I overheard Olivia speaking quietly with my father. They were planning something big, something that would change everything. The bits of conversation I caught were enough to make me panic. "We'll be free of the burden," Olivia said eagerly, "once she takes the farm, and him." Their laughter, cold and cruel, reached up to my small attic room. I lay there, crushed by the weight of their plans. What did they mean? Was I the burden they wanted to be free of? Question after question raced through my mind, each more disturbing than the last. As dawn broke the next day, I woke up with a determination I had never felt before. I knew I needed to find out what was being planned behind closed doors. Little did I know, the answers would completely shake my world. It started like any other day on the farm, with the roosters crowing and the chickens bustling about, unaware of the human schemes unfolding around them. But today, I was not just feeding them. I was also watching and listening for any clue of what might happen next. After my usual morning chores, I quietly made my way back to the house. The front door was slightly open, a careless mistake, or maybe a chance I needed. I pressed my ear to the gap and listened. Inside, Olivia and my father were speaking in low, urgent voices with Mrs. Patrick, who had come back pretending to finalize the sale of the farm. "We appreciate your generous offer, Mrs. Patrick," my father said, his words slurred and smelling of last night's alcohol. "We're ready to move forward. This place and the boy, it's all too much for us now." Mrs. Patrick's voice was smooth like honey, but with a sharp edge that made me shiver. "I understand your situation, and I assure you I can take care of everything. The farm will be in good hands, and so will Jack." The way she said my name sent a shiver down my spine. Was she just another bad person in this plot, or was there something more? Determined to find answers, I took a risk later that day while Olivia was in town and my father was sleeping off another drinking session. I approached Mrs. Patrick as she was checking the farm's borders. "Mrs. Patrick," I began, my voice steadier than I felt, "why do you want to buy our farm, and why are you interested in me?" She looked at me closely for a long moment, her eyes searching mine. Then, to my surprise, she sighed. "Jack, sometimes adults have to make tough choices, but I promise, whatever happens, I'll make sure you're safe." Her words confused me. They seemed kind, but I was still unsure about her true intentions. Over the next few days, things at home got tense. Olivia's looks were sharp and calculating, and my father avoided my eyes, his usual indifference replaced by a hint of guilt. They were planning to leave. One night, I heard them talking about a new life, one without the farm and without me. The day before everything was to be finalized with Mrs. Patrick, I decided to confront Olivia. I found her in the kitchen, packing dishes with more care than she had ever shown me. "Olivia," I said, my voice cracking with a mix of fear and anger, "what's going to happen to me?" She stopped and turned slowly, her expression cold. "Jack, you're going to a better place. Mrs. Patrick will take good care of you, better than we ever could." "But I don't want to leave," I protested, my voice rising. Olivia's expression hardened. "It's not about what you want, Jack. It's for the best." That night, unable to sleep, I lay in bed listening to the whispers of the wind through the cracked window, my heart heavy, my future uncertain. The next morning, Mrs. Patrick would return to our farm to finalize the sale, and supposedly, my fate. As dawn crept over the horizon, casting long shadows across the fields, I made a decision. I couldn't just wait to see what would happen to me. Mrs. Patrick stepped forward, addressing the officers with a clear and firm tone. "There seems to be some misunderstanding here. I have not agreed to take Jack permanently. I was approached by these two about buying the farm and possibly providing Jack with temporary guardianship while they sort out their issues." The officers listened intently, taking notes. One of them turned to me, his voice kind but probing. "Jack, have they discussed with you any details about moving or living arrangements other than what you've just mentioned?" I shook my head, the weight of the unknown pressing down on me. "No, sir. They just told me I'd be staying with Mrs. Patrick for a while because it's too hard for them now." The officer nodded, then focused on Olivia and my father. "We need to investigate these claims thoroughly. It's important that any decision about Jack's welfare follows legal procedures and is made in his best interest." Olivia looked visibly shaken, her voice barely a whisper as she tried to explain. "We just thought it would be better for Jack. We can't provide for him the way he needs." The atmosphere was tense, each person's anxiety palpable. Mrs. Patrick then addressed me directly, her gaze softening. "Jack, regardless of what happens, I want you to know that my offer to help is sincere. But any long-term decision will need to be properly vetted and approved." The officers then suggested they all go inside to discuss the matter further and check some paperwork. "We also have a social worker who will need to speak with Jack and assess his living conditions," one officer added as they ushered the group towards the house. As they moved inside, I stood there for a moment, trying to process everything. The fear of the unknown mingled with a flicker of hope, knowing that these officers might just help me find a stable and caring environment. The future was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, I felt like there were adults around who might actually look out for my best interests. I never planned to take Jack away without his agreement or the proper legal steps. I was here to talk about buying the farm, but when I found out about the child's situation, I became worried. I contacted the police because I was concerned for his safety and well-being. The officers nodded and then turned their attention back to Olivia and my father. "We need to check some documents and have a longer talk about Jack's custody and your financial actions," one officer said, gesturing for them to lead the way inside. As they walked into the house, Mrs. Patrick stayed back with me for a moment. "Jack, no matter what happens today, I want you to know that my home is always open to you, and not because of any deal, but because you deserve a safe and loving place," she said. Her words felt like a warm blanket around my shivering shoulders. I nodded, not fully understanding the legal details, but feeling a spark of hope in the midst of the chaos. Inside, the officers started their questioning, pulling out documents that Olivia and my father struggled to explain. It quickly became clear that there were mistakes and possibly fake information in the paperwork related to the farm sale. As the officers dug deeper, Olivia's cover finally fell apart. It was all his idea, she burst out, pointing a trembling finger at my father. He wanted to sell the farm and get rid of the kid. I just went along with it. My father, his face now showing despair, looked at me, his eyes finally meeting mine. "Jack, I'm sorry. I thought it would be better for you." The room spun around me as accusations were made and confessions came out. The officers took notes, their faces serious. The betrayal hurt, but the truth coming out also brought a strange relief. Finally, the reality of my life was being acknowledged by those who could change it. As the morning turned into afternoon, decisions were made. Olivia and my father were taken into custody for further questioning, and I was left in the temporary care of Mrs. Patrick. As we left the farm, I looked back at the only home I'd ever known, feeling the weight of my past and the uncertain promise of my future. As we drove away from the farm, the landscape of my past turned into a blur of green and gray, a picture fading into the background of my new reality. Seated next to Mrs. Patrick in the warmth of her car, I started to feel a cautious hope for what lay ahead. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, I felt a true sense of safety, a sanctuary from the chaos that had ensnared my life. Yet beneath this newfound security, my emotions churned: betrayal from those I had trusted, relief from the danger I was escaping, fear of the unknown ahead, and a budding hope kindled by Mrs. Patrick's words. Mrs. Patrick, sensing my tumultuous state, broke the silence as we drove. "Jack, I know today has been extraordinarily difficult, and the days ahead will involve many changes, but remember, you're not alone anymore," she assured me, her voice a soothing balm to my frayed nerves. She revealed that she had been observing the farm for some time, suspecting that not all was as it seemed. Her intervention, she explained, wasn't solely about the property itself, but was driven by a concern for my well-being. As we arrived at her estate, I was struck by its grandeur. The house, large yet welcoming, was surrounded by lush gardens bursting with vibrant colors, a stark contrast to the drab existence I had known. The gardens, a riot of hues, seemed almost surreal in their beauty, providing a visual feast that lifted my spirits. Over the subsequent days, Mrs. Patrick took the necessary legal steps to stabilize my situation. She was appointed my temporary guardian, and the process to officially make her my foster parent was initiated. During this period, I came to learn more about her. Unable to have children of her own, and having lost her husband a few years prior, she lived in a large estate that seemed too quiet for just one person. It was clear her heart had ample room for more. One sunny afternoon, as we meandered through her rose garden, the air fragrant with the scent of blooms, Mrs. Patrick paused and faced me. Her expression was earnest. "Jack, I want you to understand that you are not a replacement or a charity case," she began, her voice firm yet kind. "You are a brave young boy who deserves a chance at happiness. I hope with time, you will come to see this place as your home." Her words, sincere and heartfelt, planted a seed of hope in me. Maybe, just maybe, I could really start a new life here, one filled with love and stability. But life, as I was learning, is seldom straightforward. Just when I began to feel secure in my new environment, the past reared its head one more time. A few weeks after settling in with Mrs. Patrick, an unexpected call came from the police. They wanted to discuss the ongoing investigation into my father and Olivia. Anxiously, I went to the station where an officer handed me a letter found among Olivia's possessions. It was addressed to me, from my mother. Holding the envelope, my hands trembled as I felt the weight of its contents. Inside, written in my mother's elegant hand, were words of pure love and longing. She spoke of her deep affection for me, her aspirations for my future, and her profound regret at not being there to witness it. The letter, a mixture of love and sorrow, shattered yet healed parts of me. Her words echoed in my heart, affirming that despite her physical absence, her love had always been with me. As I absorbed her words, a profound sense of clarity settled over me. The betrayal and secrecy I had faced were now overshadowed by the undeniable truth of my mother's love. This revelation, though painful, brought a strange relief. It reassured me of my worth and solidified my resolve to embrace the new life Mrs. Patrick offered. With each passing day, the estate began to feel more like home. The shadows of my past receded, making way for a future I had once thought unattainable. Seated next to Mrs. Patrick in the warmth of her car, driving away from the police station, I realized that life was offering me a new beginning. As we navigated the roads leading back to the estate, the landscape of my past, once filled with uncertainty and fear, faded into a backdrop of vibrant greens and grays, a mere setting for the unfolding story of my new reality. I didn't even realize I needed it until it was in my hands, a letter from a mother I never got to know. It was a piece of my past that Olivia had tried to erase, but now, it was finally mine. This link to my mother, a connection long denied, became a cherished possession as the weeks turned into months, and the legal proceedings against Olivia and my father unfolded. They were eventually found guilty of fraud and child neglect. My father, seeking redemption, tried to reach out, longing to apologize and to reconnect. But for me, the path forward did not include him, not yet at least. Forgiveness is a complex journey, and I wasn't ready to embark on it. Living with Mrs. Patrick, who I came to affectionately call Patricia, was a blend of everyday routines and extraordinary moments. School, which had once seemed like a distant, unattainable dream, became a staple in my daily life. Patricia supported me in every way. She encouraged my studies, supported my exploration of new hobbies, and most importantly, she helped me navigate the tangled emotions of my past. One evening, as we sat watching the sunset from the porch, the sky a canvas of orange and pink, Patricia turned to me and shared a thought that struck a deep chord. "Jack, all families are built differently. Some are formed by blood, others by bonds that are stronger than blood. We're the latter, and I couldn't be prouder." That moment felt like the final piece of a puzzle slotting into place. The turmoil of my past had led me to this tranquil present, and the future was a canvas waiting to be painted with the vibrant colors of hope and healing. Patricia's words settled deep within me, affirming a truth I was only beginning to grasp. The definition of family could be much broader than traditional bonds, encompassing connections built on support, understanding, and unconditional love. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months as I settled into my new life with Patricia. The estate, with its sprawling gardens and quiet corners, became a sanctuary where I could grow and heal. We spent many afternoons wandering through the blooming gardens, discussing books, life, and my dreams for the future. Patricia, ever patient and wise, listened and advised, guiding me with a gentle hand. As the court cases wrapped up and the legalities were dealt with, I found myself thinking more about the future. I started to make plans for college, for travel, and perhaps one day for ways I could help others who had faced challenges like mine. Patricia was supportive of all my plans, encouraging me to dream big and work hard. It wasn't just the practical support that made my life with Patricia transformative. It was the emotional healing that took place. The more I learned about empathy, compassion, and resilience from her, the more I began to understand the depth of what I had experienced. The process of healing from the past was slow and sometimes painful, but it was also filled with moments of profound realization and growth. And now, as I reflect back on the journey from the shadows into the light, I see how far I've come. From a childhood overshadowed by neglect and deception to a life enriched by love and new opportunities. This story, my story, doesn't just end with a new beginning. It continues each day with each new challenge and triumph. This tale is more than just my personal narrative. It's a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the transformative power of compassion. To anyone who finds themselves in the darkness of despair, remember, the path to light often begins with the courage to step forward and the support of just one person who believes in you. Thank you for walking this journey with me, through trials and tribulations, towards a horizon bright with promise. As I stand now, ready to face whatever comes next, I do so not alone, but with a family chosen not by blood, but by bonds forged in the depths of adversity and strengthened in the warmth of mutual respect and love.
"Oh, I really thought Mom had saved a lot of money," I said. "Didn't I tell you? Just kick her out already. Why keep a jobless burden here?" I had been living with my son and his wife for 4 months, and they had drained my savings. They treated me like a servant. I had enough, so I left quietly. Then my son called me. "Mom, what's going on?" Eric sounded frantic on the phone. Around that time, something I did had made headlines across the Canada. I'm Olivia, and I am 65 years old. I had been living in Italy for several years, but my health got worse, so I came back to the States. My old apartment was gone, so I reached out to my son and his wife to see if I could stay with them for a while. Eric, my only son, is 38 and works in an office. He and his wife Helen don't have kids and seem to live quietly. We lost touch while I was away, but I decided to reconnect. Eric seemed glad to hear from me. I explained my situation and asked if I could stay for a while. Eric reluctantly agreed. It was awkward to impose on them, but the joy of seeing my family again overcame my hesitations. With a mix of nervousness and happiness, I took a taxi from the airport to their house. When I arrived, Eric and Helen greeted me at the entrance. Eric looked happy, but Helen was visibly unhappy. I planned to stay for a few months, and my belongings would be delivered later. I dropped off my carry-on bag and went to the living room. We chatted about our daily lives and jobs, as well as my recent life in Italy. When Eric asked why I had moved to Italy, I just said, I'm getting old and wanted to enjoy the Italian countryside. Eric laughed, but Helen remained unhappy. Then we discussed my health issues. I've been having severe dizziness and was told it might be Meniere's disease. When a seizure occurs, people may be unable to stand because their surroundings are spinning and they may feel nauseous. I feel insecure living alone, so I wanted to stay with them until my condition stabilizes. I went back to the entrance to grab my things from my carry-on. As I was organizing my stuff in the hallway, I overheard Eric and Helen talking. Eric, are you serious about letting Olivia stay? I don't want to live with an old woman. Come on, she's my mom. You also work part-time, so you won't always be around. Yeah, but what about our days off? How long is she planning to stay? I want her gone. Don't talk like that. Mom will leave eventually. We can discuss finances tomorrow. Just keep it down, she might hear you. She can't hear us. Old age doesn't bring sharp ears for insults. There I was, eavesdropping on their conversation in the cold hallway. I felt bad for imposing on Eric and his wife so suddenly. I'm sure it's a big inconvenience for them, but I'm really happy to be spending time with Eric and his wife after all these years apart. When Eric was young, I raised him as a single mom after losing my husband. We didn't have much, and Eric had his share of hardships dealing with illness and all. This isn't making up for that, but I wanted to come here to share my apologies and gratitude. That's why I came to this house. It's a shame I'm not welcomed, but they've got their own lives to live. I went to the guest room they gave me, trying to calm my anxious heart. The next morning, Eric left for work, and it was just Helen and me. While I was doing some crafting in the living room, Helen stood before me. Hey Olivia, can you not make such a mess? I looked around and noticed fabric scraps and threads scattered about. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll clean it up. Do you know what this is? I showed her the small pouch I was sewing. It had a little green turtle design on it. This is a turtle pouch. I love turtles, so I make little turtle-themed crafts. It even has a zipper on its shell too. That's nice, but Olivia, you can't just hang around here all day. Helen cut me off, clearly uninterested. At least go somewhere else when I'm off from my part-time job. You're in the way. But I get dizzy if I go outside too much. I'll drive you to the nearby community center to stay there during the day. I have things to do at home, Helen said firmly. Also, help with the chores while you're here. It's the least you can do since we're letting you stay. Don't do crafts, do some cleaning and laundry. I was stunned. I finally said, all right then, and slowly got up. From then on, I ended up doing all the housework. Even though I was dizzy and sore, I took on the chores. Helen and Eric treated me like a housekeeper. Helen seemed addicted to social media, always on her phone. It looked like she hadn't been keeping up with the housework before I came. That night, Eric came home and asked, Mom, did you bring your bank card? He smiled as he talked to me. I don't mind you living with us, but life costs money. Could you chip in? I looked at Eric over my reading glasses, nodded, and stood up. I pulled the bank card from my handmade pouch and handed it to him. He checked it quickly, and his face tightened. Wait, Mom, is this all you have saved? Any other accounts? That's all I have. I don't need much at my age. No chronic illnesses or anything, I said, smiling. As the conversation continued, Eric's expression darkened. Man, this is not enough money, not even $20,000. You said you were living large abroad, so I assumed. Eric kept pestering me, asking if I had any more money. When I said no, he sighed and slumped his shoulders. Fine, I'll hang on to this cash for now. I'm doing you a favor letting you live here, so this is the least you could do. After getting my account password, Eric grabbed my bank and debit cards and left the room. That night, lying in bed, I could hear Eric through the wall that separated our rooms. Oh, this is a letdown. I totally thought Mom was loaded. Our household is actually in the red. Shouldn't have said she could stay. See, I told you. Kick her out already. That jobless moocher brings us no benefits whatsoever. The two of them seemed confident I couldn't hear, talking freely in the next room. Or maybe they wanted me to hear them. In my cold bed, I held back tears of loneliness and sorrow. The next day, Helen had a day off, so she drove me to the local community center. I opened my cargo bag to continue my handiwork in the lounge area, but realized I had left the essential fabric at home. I hesitated but couldn't ask Helen to go back and get it. Fortunately, my dizziness was under control today. I knew this area, so I decided to take a walk home to get the fabric. Finally arriving, I glanced through the veranda into the house. Helen and an unfamiliar man were there. At first, I thought he was a visitor, but they seemed intimately close. I hesitated outside for a while, then turned back without entering the house. So that's why they wanted me out, so I wouldn't interrupt the affair. Back at the community center, I kept thinking about Helen and that man and decided to call someone for advice. From then on, I avoided bringing up the man and continued interacting with Eric and his wife. However, whenever I left the house, I would conspicuously place a red turtle pouch at the edge of the living room side table. 4 months had passed since I started staying with Eric's family. By this point, I had essentially become the household maid. When I was at home, I had to do endless chores, and when Helen was home, I was relegated to the community center. My savings had mostly been drained by Eric, a man with a gambling addiction who spent most of his free time on lotteries and slots. It seemed his fixation on money stemmed from the financial hardships he suffered as a child. I initially tried to intervene, but eventually gave up because mentioning it always enraged him. 4 months in, and I couldn't take it anymore. One night before a long weekend, I decided to bring up something I'd been considering. Eric, Helen, thank you for letting me stay with you. Eric, I know I made things hard for you when you were young by not having much money. I'm sorry for all the trouble I've caused, but I'm grateful. I pulled out a homemade turtle pouch from the table. It was green with a zipper on the shell. This is a token of my gratitude to both of you. I hope you'll accept it. Contrary to my expectations, neither Eric nor Helen showed any interest in my handmade pouch. Mom, enough of that. Are we really out of money? Think about the Italian account or something. Eric, I told you we are out of money. Look, I worked really hard on this. Can you just take it as a token of my love? Remember how happy you were when you were little, and I would fill the shell with candy and some pocket money. Eric started to get increasingly irritated. I'm not a kid anymore. I'm not happy receiving something like this. Olivia, how much longer are you planning to mooch off us? Honestly, it's annoying. Eric and his wife gave me a cold look. Desperate, I asked Eric, do you remember Brian? He helped us out in that old apartment we lived in. What? I don't remember. Stop bringing up old stories. Are we done? Eric said, looking annoyed. I was stunned into silence. I clenched the turtle pouch in my hand and felt the texture of the paper inside. The next day, Eric and his wife went on vacation, leaving me behind. After our conversation yesterday, I decided to leave the house. I quickly packed my bags and arranged to send them to my home in Italy. I also made sure to put the red turtle pouch into my carry-on bag. I left a simple note of thanks and goodbye on the table and left the house where I'd been staying for 4 months. After that, I didn't return home immediately. Instead, I stayed in a K hotel for a while. I had things to do, and I thought Eric and his wife would contact me eventually. Sure enough, about 3 weeks later, Eric called. "Mom, what's going on with the turtle pouch? It's yours, isn't it?" Eric yelled over the phone. "Ah, you noticed?" I said. I wasn't surprised when I saw the news on TV. The turtle-shaped pouch I had planned to give to Eric and his wife had a check for $2 million inside it. It was my way of saying thanks for all they had done and to apologize for any trouble I caused when I was younger. Some might find it shallow to atone with money, but I had dreamed of the day I could give it to them, saving up bit by bit over 39 years. I had found out Eric was in debt. He had tried to pay off gambling debts with more gambling, only to sink deeper. Even with a steady job, he was struggling. I wanted him to clear his debts and live peacefully, but they refused my gesture. They had forgotten the kindness they once showed me. So I decided to divide the $1 million check into smaller sums and donate it to charities and welfare organizations across Canada. I placed the donations in that handmade turtle pouch and sent it anonymously. The turtle pouch became a sensation, making headlines and trending on social media. Helen saw it on social media. "Isn't that the turtle pouch Mom made? So that means you were going to give us one filled with money too." Yes, exactly. That was my way of saying thank you and sorry. I had been crafting both the pouch and saving the money to give to you. Well, you could have said that. We would have taken it if you didn't want my feelings. Then you don't need my money either. Eric was yelling on the phone, completely unhinged. "It's my money. How dare you deceive me? Give it back." I couldn't listen anymore and pulled the phone away from my ear. After a moment, I spoke. "All right, calm down. You're giving me a headache. There's one more turtle, and if you really want it, it's yours." Eric finally settled down and reiterated his desire for the turtle. We agreed to meet later at a cafe. On that day, I took the last red turtle in an envelope to our meeting spot. Eric and his wife were already there and demanded the money before I even sat down. When I silently pulled out the red turtle, Eric snatched it immediately and unzipped its shell. Inside was not a check but a small electronic device. "What the heck is this?" Eric said, confused. He fiddled with the device and found a tiny button. He pressed it, and a voice began to play. Helen, standing next to Eric, immediately changed color. It was Helen's voice talking warmly with another man that wasn't Eric. "What is this? Why? What's happening?" Helen seemed to finally realize it was a recording of her having an affair. She tried to snatch the recorder from Eric's hand, but Eric didn't let go. While they grappled, I opened the envelope I brought and laid out several pictures on the table. These were photos of Helen cheating with another man at home. Faced with irrefutable evidence, Helen was flustered and kept saying, "Why? Why?" Eric picked up the photos one by one, examining them intently. "Since I came to your house, something seemed off. A friend told me I could hire someone to find out and even offered to cover the costs." "What's your problem? Why would you do this?" "Well, you're my son's wife. It's sad to think family is deceiving each other. You'll understand when you're older. I guess fate brought me here to discover your infidelity." "Helen, have you been lying to me all along? Since when?" "Eric, you've got your own secrets too. If you're blaming her for cheating, you need to fess up as well." "What? I've never cheated." "What about your debt?" Eric fell silent, and now it was Helen's turn to speak. "What about you wasting all your money on gambling? I only use the money I earn, and you have your part-time job, so you should have some money." Listening to their squabble, I sighed. This couple had somehow managed to keep it together until now. Neither of you has any money. Eric, you're $50,000 in debt. Helen, you've been giving all your earnings to your affair partner. I had the investigator check your finances too, I said. Both Eric and Helen were shocked and started shouting at each other. I was floored when I first heard the investigation results. This couple was on the brink of bankruptcy. Look, we can pay back the debt if we get Mom's money. So give it to us now. I donated all the money. The only thing left is this red turtle figurine. You blew through my savings on gambling, remember? You're kidding me. All of it? Enraged, Eric lunged at me across the table. Other customers started to pay attention, and the staff hurried over. The $2 million is mine. It was supposed to be mine. Give it back. Soon, the police had to be called to restrain Eric. After the police calmed him down, they kindly escorted me back to my hotel due to my concerns about Eric's aggressive behavior. A week later, Eric and Helen's relationship had deteriorated beyond repair due to the affair and debt. They got divorced. Eric, now single, got even more consumed with gambling and acquired more debt. He was caught trying to embezzle company funds. He avoided criminal charges but was fired. To make matters worse, his outburst at the cafe was captured on video and spread on social media, making it difficult for him to find another job. Unable to bear the shame, Eric cut off all contact and disappeared. After the divorce, Helen had no one to rely on and moved into an old public housing unit, living alone. Just before I could make a donation for the turtle rescue, my online post mocking my own turtle went viral. Helen started facing harassment and stalking, which eventually spread to her part-time job and got her fired. Even the man she was having an affair with grew tired of her and left. Now, without any income, she's living on temporary assistance for needy families. After that, I returned to my home in Italy. Once I finished unpacking in my apartment, I changed into a dress with practiced ease. As I was reviewing some work documents, I heard a noise at the entrance. It seemed Brian, my cohabitant, had returned home. "Hey, Madam President, welcome back. How was your trip to Canadian after so long?" Brian came over with a smile, setting down his coat and bags. Brian is 69 years old. He was a resident in the same apartment complex where my son Eric and I lived years ago. I was struggling with poverty, having lost my husband and caring for a young asthmatic Eric. We had no utilities and no one to turn to. I was desperate and considered ending it all. It was Brian and his wife, our upstairs neighbors, who saved us. They were our lifeline. Please call me Olivia. I'm back, and look, I brought so many souvenirs. Wow, all my favorites. Thanks. I'll take some to the storytelling event at the community center tomorrow, Brian said, examining each of the piled-up souvenirs on the table, his face beaming. After we got back on our feet, Brian and his wife moved away for work. Years later, we bumped into each other in the city, and I began helping with a support program for the needy that Brian had founded. By then, Brian's wife had passed away, and we started working together as business and life partners. I've been leading the organization since Brian retired a few years ago. What started as a small operation by Brian and his wife has grown into a large-scale international organization over the past 32 years. Currently, we're focusing on supporting single moms in raising their children. We moved to Italy a few years ago to study their advanced support systems. Although we have become quite well known in Italy, we're still not widely recognized in Canadian. I plan to expand our activities there soon and wanted to spend time with Eric and his family as just a mom before they found out about my work. In the end, I couldn't get them to understand how I felt, but that's their choice. Even if it was for a brief moment, I was happy to spend time as a family. I am now 65 years old, but it's just 65. There's still much I want and need to do. I straightened my back in my dress and began thinking about my international speech for tomorrow. Don't you dare show up at my graduation ceremony. A boring old hag like you will just be everyone's laughing stock. It's my big day, so absolutely do not come." Hearing those words from Kelly made my head spin. It was clear she didn't see me as family. To her, I was just an embarrassment. "Hey, old hag, where are you now?" The moment I pressed the call button, Kelly's shrill voice pierced my ears. She sounded rushed and full of impatience, almost panicked. "You can't just leave a silly note like that and think it's okay. Where are you now? Come back home now." I could hear Jake's voice too. Both of them were freaking out. "My name is Lisa. I'm a 41-year-old housewife. I've been juggling a part-time job at the local real estate office while raising my daughter Kelly and doing housework for over a decade. I married my husband Jake 13 years ago. Jake had a daughter, Kelly, from his previous wife. I met Jake at my old workplace, a construction company, where he was there for business. Our company was tough on clients, but Jake, always smiling and cheerful, made a good impression on me. I recommended his products to my company, wanting to be helpful. As a result, his company was chosen. That connection led us to go out for meals several times, and we got deeply involved. He proposed, and I happily accepted, quitting my job to prepare for the wedding. Just before the wedding, Jake revealed that he was living alone with his 5-year-old daughter. At first, I thought it was a lie. It was hard to believe, but it was true. I met Kelly a week before the ceremony. She was maybe shy, hiding behind Jake, and wouldn't come out in front of me. That's when I decided I would live with them for Kelly's sake. I wanted to raise her into a fine adult. I planned to take care of Kelly properly, especially until she graduated from high school. I'm not sure why I felt this way, but her anxious eyes peeking out from behind Jake were unforgettable. I made up my mind and decided to marry Jake. It was my first marriage, and my family was against it. My father was furious and said, "They're mocking you." But I went against my parents' wishes and married Jake. If I had listened to my parents, I might have avoided the trouble that was about to start. 13 years have passed since that marriage. Kelly has turned 17 and is supposed to graduate from high school this year. It should be a joyful occasion, but I couldn't feel genuinely happy. The thought, "I'll make her a fine adult," crossed my mind when I decided to marry Jake. "Hey, old hag, where's my t-shirt? Where did you put it? You didn't steal it, did you?" 3 years after we started living together, Kelly began calling me old hag. At first, she was kind and gradually got used to me. But one day she started calling me old, and her attitude became rough. I pulled the t-shirt out from the folded laundry and handed it to Kelly. "Why did you wash it? What if it shrinks? It should have been dry cleaned. You know, you're really clueless, seriously so dumb." I had hand-washed and air-dried the t-shirt because I thought the fabric would get damaged at the cleaners, but I couldn't say that to Kelly. All I could reply was, "I'm sorry." Kelly snatched it from my hand as if she was grabbing it and said, "Really, you're useless," and left with those parting words. Her words were sharp and pierced my heart. I couldn't argue back, so I just apologized. I didn't understand why Kelly had become so rough towards me. At first, I thought she was teased about her father's remarriage, but it seemed that wasn't the case. Around that time, Jake's attitude began to change. He used to smile all the time when he was working, but recently he had stopped showing his smile at home and had become grumpy. He had started calling me "hey" and "you." As Jake's attitude changed, so did Kelly's towards me. I thought there might be something lacking in me, so I made sure not to slack off in household chores and watched over Kelly carefully. I wanted Kelly to grow up to be a respectable adult, but instead, her attitude got worse every day. She called me old hag all the time, and I never heard a thank you from her anymore. It was strange because at parent-teacher conferences, her behavior in class was normal, with no signs of roughness. Jake also talked normally with her and sometimes even smiled. This terrible attitude was only directed at me, which hurt my heart even more. I couldn't talk to Jake about it because he had become distant and completely different from before. I had no one to talk to and felt very alone. Living with a heavy and dark weight on my heart, I was becoming isolated in my own home. Since middle school, Kelly had stopped telling me about school, and Jake attended the events. I had to learn about school events from neighbors. Jake and Kelly seemed to get along well, often going out together. I wanted to be treated as family by them too, and had hoped we could live together happily. It was unbearably painful that it wasn't happening, and Jake's attitude was getting worse. "There's dust on the stairs, clean it up. You're a stay-at-home wife, aren't you? We're running out of toilet paper. Are you even cleaning the bathroom? You really are so clumsy." These were the kinds of things Jake frequently said to me. When we first got married, we each had our roles in household chores. Jake used to do housework while living with Kelly. At first, he was happy that we could share the chores. Now, I'm doing all the household chores. Jake once said that it's ridiculous for a stay-at-home wife to do all the housework. Kelly was an easy child to raise, but somehow that made me feel worse. When I tried to discuss it with Jake, he dismissed it with, "You're not trying hard enough." In the end, it seemed like everything was my fault. The more I tried to talk to Jake, the more a heavy fog clouded my heart. He would nitpick my every small mistake in housework relentlessly. "Can't you even clean properly? Haven't you learned anything all these years? Do you lack learning ability?" Jake looked down on me with disdain. All I could do was apologize. "I'm sorry. I'll try my hardest. Please forgive me." Jake sighed heavily, clearly exasperated. "Even if you try your hardest, you won't be able to do it. That's why you get scolded. Always saying you'll do it, but you've never managed it, have you?" His words continued to chip away at my heart. As time passed, my heart grew weary, and Kelly turned 18. I was curious about Kelly's future plans, but she wouldn't tell me, and Jake wouldn't talk to me about it either. By this time, I had stopped talking to Jake and Kelly unless absolutely necessary. I overheard Kelly and Jake discussing her plans after graduation. I wanted to know, so I stopped and listened. It's settled. I got into college on a recommendation, and I even got a scholarship. "It's all thanks to you, Dad. Thank you." I could hear Kelly's happy voice. She would never speak to me in such a tone. "Good for you. It's the result of your efforts." It was worth pushing all the housework onto the clumsy maid. What an awful thing to say. He must be talking about me. Yeah, it was a good outlet for stress too. I could hear their contemptuous laughter. I quietly left the spot and hid in the bathroom. It was the only place I could be alone. I crouched in the bathroom, held my head and cried. To think that Jake and Kelly thought of me in such a way. I had endured for the past 12 years. No matter how much my spirit was about to break, I kept being Kelly's mother and Jake's wife. Even when I felt I was at my limit, I forced myself to keep going. There were times when I felt I couldn't get up, but I made myself get up, make lunch, prepare breakfast, and do the laundry and cleaning. If I were honest, I would have preferred to just lie down, but doing so would surely make me no longer needed by Jake and Kelly. That fear kept me going. I spent my days exhausted. Honestly, I don't remember much from that time. One day, when I was out shopping, a neighbor shocked me with the news. The next day was Kelly's high school graduation ceremony. I couldn't admit I didn't know, so I just smiled vaguely and left. As soon as I got home, I collapsed onto the sofa. I had always thought of making Kelly a respectable adult. Graduation from high school was supposed to be a milestone for that. Again, I was the only one left out in this house. I am not allowed to have a smartphone or use a computer. All communication and information came through Jake and Kelly, and they chose to keep me in the dark. I have a simple flip phone that can only make calls. Jake handles all interactions with the school, so I don't even have anyone I can call a mom friend. I have no way to learn about school information. Still, I found out about sports days and performances from neighbors' conversations and kids' chats on their way back from school, and I secretly attended them. I wanted to properly attend the high school graduation and celebrate her step into adulthood. As I was crying on the sofa, Kelly came back from school. "Hey, old hag, what are you slouching around for? It's depressing. You're making the whole house dark. Can't you do something about it?" Kelly glared at me. It was her fault, yet she acted like this. If Kelly had told me the date of the graduation ceremony, I wouldn't have felt this way. For the first time, I felt anger slowly rising from the depths of my heart. "The graduation ceremony is tomorrow, isn't it? Seems like you didn't tell me." I questioned her with a feeling of blame. Kelly looked slightly taken aback by my defiant words, but exaggeratedly sighed to cover it up. "So what? You wouldn't come to the graduation anyway, so why does the date matter to you?" I tilted my head in defiance at Kelly's words. I never said I wouldn't go to the graduation. "Don't come. If a boring old hag like you shows up, you'll be everyone's laughing stock. It's my big day, so definitely do not come." Kelly's words about being everyone's laughing stock made me dizzy. Clearly, Kelly doesn't think of me as family. To her, I am an embarrassment. I thought this time would be different, but she wouldn't see me any other way. "Don't come." Kelly's words pierced my heart. It was clear from her own mouth that I was nothing but a nuisance. That night, Jake came home with a suit and a dry cleaner's bag. He had sent the suit to the dry cleaners himself, without asking me, of course. Jake knew about Kelly's graduation. As I looked at the suit, Jake said with a pitying look and a smirk, "Right, Kelly didn't tell you. Clearly, I am the least needed in this house." Thinking I was family was just my wishful thinking. At that moment, I realized my heart had long reached its limit. That's why I decided to stop being a family. The next day, Jake and Kelly left together for her high school graduation. I was left behind. Moreover, Jake told me, "We'll eat out tonight, so we won't need dinner." I wasn't invited. The old me would have just cried and taken it, but those days ended today. I had decided to leave this house. I made up my mind last night. As soon as they left, I packed my bags, wrote a note, and left the house. I couldn't be a family with Kelly and Jake anymore. I decided to stay at my parents' house, about 3 hours away by train. At my parents' home, I started preparing to cut ties with Jake and Kelly. In the note I left, I wrote that I wanted to end our family relationship and live alone, and that I wished to discuss the details through a lawyer. I hadn't found a lawyer yet, but my father would likely know one. My family owns a lot of land and is known as wealthy landowners in the area. My father also owns considerable real estate and is well known locally. He certainly had lawyers in his circle. I had met a lawyer at a Christmas party when I was at home. Besides finding a lawyer, I had to sell the house where Jake and Kelly were still living. The house was built on land owned by my father, and the construction costs were covered by me as a wedding gift. I had been repaying my father little by little with the money I earned from my part-time job in real estate, which was also introduced by my father. Essentially, the house, both the building and the land, are owned by my father. They are in his name officially. At the time, Jake probably thought the house was a gift since he never asked about the ownership. He was likely too afraid to upset my father and lose the house. Jake is quite the coward. He is aggressively assertive toward those he perceives as beneath him, but to those above him, he is subservient and ingratiating. I explained everything that had happened to my father. As I spoke, tears flowed uncontrollably. I had to stop several times due to my sobbing, but my father listened until the end. There were tears in his eyes too. What comforted me was that my father didn't criticize the decisions I had made back then. In the end, he simply said, "You've had a hard time." Afterwards, my father made calls, and soon lawyers and real estate management people came to the house. Everything happened very quickly after that. It was decided that the house would be demolished, and the demolition was set for 2 weeks later. In the note I left, I wrote, "Please leave within a week." My father sarcastically remarked, "That's quite generous of you." For me, it was just about avoiding later complaints. The week passed as I consulted with the lawyer about the divorce. I also told my mother about the divorce, and we cried together. I can't forget the look on her face, furious, like a demon. I also talked with my father about what would come next. Above all, I needed to set up a new foundation for my life. It took courage to talk to my parents, and it was hard, but once I did, my heart felt lighter, and I slept soundly for the first time in 12 years. A week passed peacefully at my parents' home. Then my cell phone rang. As expected, it was Kelly. Honestly, I didn't want to talk anymore. Remembering how Kelly had treated me all this time, a dark feeling spread through my heart. I decided to ignore the call, but the calls didn't stop. Jake also started calling repeatedly. They were probably calling about the note I left, and maybe the demolition crew had also contacted them. For 12 years, Jake and Kelly had called me old hag and treated me like a servant. The way they treated me was not how family should treat each other. The thought of dealing with them again made my skin crawl, but leaving things as they were wasn't right either. I couldn't move forward without settling the past. If I ran away now and left things unfinished, I wouldn't feel at peace. After the way they treated me, it was time for Jake and Kelly to face the consequences. I braced myself and answered the phone. "Hey, old hag, where are you now?" As soon as I pressed the call button, Kelly's shrill voice pierced my ears. Her tone was rushed, full of impatience and panic. "Leaving a ridiculous note like that? You think that's forgivable? Where are you now? Come back right now." I could hear Jake's voice as well. Both of them were in a complete panic. I imagined Kelly coming home from graduation, finding that this servant-like woman who used to relieve their stress was gone. Moreover, there was a note saying divorce and leave the house. Even Kelly would panic in such a situation, especially on the day of her graduation ceremony. I couldn't help but let out a chuckle at how flustered Kelly was. Who is this?" Kelly seemed surprised by my response and stumbled over her words. I hung up the phone. Afterwards, I called the real estate management company to check when the demolition was starting. It was scheduled for tomorrow as planned, and Jake had already been notified. I asked to postpone the demolition to the day after tomorrow and requested that Jake be informed of the one-day delay. The one-day reprieve was granted. Jake would probably come here then. I was ready to deliver a heavy blow to Jake and Kelly. There were dozens of calls from them, but I ignored them all. The next day, around noon, I heard the doorbell and knocking. It must be Jake and Kelly. They probably wanted to come earlier, but the poor train connections made it take a long time. Jake and Kelly were panting heavily, looking really anxious. I had arranged for my parents to stay out of sight, so it looked like I was the only one home. I showed Jake and Kelly into the living room. Jake entered the house hesitantly, intimidated by my father, who is a wealthy and well-known figure in town with a commanding presence. Jake probably sees himself as beneath my father. On the other hand, Kelly wasn't intimidated at all. She seemed determined to confront me and take me back. Kelly slumped into a chair in the living room, crossing her legs and arms, silently motioning for me to sit opposite her. I prepared tea slowly and calmly before sitting across from her. Growing impatient, Kelly started to speak. "What the heck is all this about?" Jake, who was sitting next to me, placed the note I had left on the table. I just stared silently into Kelly's eyes without any reaction. Kelly looked away first, trying to shake off the awkwardness with a laugh. "What was with that 'who is this' yesterday? That was some pretty bad acting." Still, I remained silent, staring at Kelly. She became uncomfortable under my gaze, shifted in her seat, and continued talking. "Look, you can't make it on your own without us. You're nothing but trash." I almost reacted to Kelly's harsh words, but managed to restrain myself because I could hear the tremor in her voice. Kelly must be putting on a brave front. So far, Jake had been silent, just watching how things unfolded. "Stop being so stubborn and come back home," Kelly berated me with harsh words, trying to confuse and drag me back home. The more excited Kelly got, the calmer I responded. I don't have a family, do I? Oh, I do have parents, but you two aren't my family, are you? I said. Kelly, for her part, probably felt out of her depth. She started talking loudly. What are you talking about? You and Dad are my family, right? Hey Dad, that's right, isn't it? Kelly must have felt at a disadvantage alone, so she asked Jake for help. Jake looked around nervously and, seeing that no one else was around, seemed relieved and started talking to me. That's right, you can't live without us, just like Kelly says, so you're coming back. Jake began to act all high and mighty when he saw my parents weren't around. Looking back, I realized what a cowardly man he is. As I said before, I have no family, I answered firmly. No matter what Jake and Kelly say, I'll keep treating them as strangers. Jake and Kelly are not my family. If they were, they wouldn't treat me like a slave. Family is about holding hands and helping each other. When someone in the family is in trouble, it's normal for the family to support them. However, Jake and Kelly were different. They've been treating me as a servant and an outlet for stress for over 12 years. Jake and Kelly insist that this is normal. They're unaware of how terrible and wrong it is. They've been oppressing me unconsciously. I'm amazed I've put up with it for 12 years. I'm impressed with myself. It all started when I saw Kelly peeking from behind Jake. I was bound by my own words to raise Kelly into a fine adult. Because of these words, I've been desperately serving Jake and Kelly. That's why I endured until her high school graduation. I had decided that when Kelly graduated from high school and was ready to leave, it would be time to draw the line. I had a faint hope that Jake and Kelly would change their attitude towards me by then, and we could be a family. But they betrayed my expectations, leading to this situation. Everything was decided by their attitude the day before the graduation ceremony. So I'm facing them with the appropriate attitude now. Jake and Kelly are no longer my family, which is why I don't treat them as family. Kelly started to change her tone, realizing the seriousness. We are family, aren't we, Mom? Stop putting on this silly act, please. Before I knew it, she had switched from calling me old hag to Mom. Apparently, Kelly began to understand that things wouldn't go as they used to. Jake watched anxiously as he looked at me and Kelly. You may not be my birth mother, but we've lived together all this time, so please listen to my request. Kelly unfolded her crossed arms and clasped her hands in front of her. She had been sitting back, but now she was leaning forward. I have no obligation to listen to requests from someone who isn't family, I continued, keeping my emotions in check. Tears appeared in Kelly's eyes as she pleaded desperately, please listen to me. That note was a lie, right? You're not really going to sell the house, are you? It can't be true because you are part of our family, Mom. I felt disgusted by the way Kelly said Mom. What concerned her was the house, not me. She must be anxious about losing her home. It's true that the house will be gone. Is that what you're worried about? I asked. It seemed all that mattered was having a place to live, even if I wasn't there. No matter how much Kelly begged, my feelings wouldn't change. Kelly hung her head and cried. Jake, upset by Kelly's tears, lashed out at me. What kind of joke is this? Enough with your disrespectful attitude. What's with that note? Come back right now and stop the demolition. I responded with suppressed emotion in my voice. I can't. It's already decided. Do you think you can do this to your family and get away with it? Jake yelled. That's why I keep telling you, you are not my family, I replied, but neither Jake nor Kelly seemed to be listening. Enough already. Haven't I been saying we're not family? I thought, feeling like I was repeating myself. Jake suddenly stood up and slammed his fist on the table. Don't mess with me. I was shocked but kept my emotions in check. Who's messing around? You haven't treated me as family for 12 years, and now you can't suddenly act like it. That's impossible. My voice came out harsher than I expected. I was angry too, even though I didn't show it. Anger was bubbling up inside me like magma. I couldn't forgive Jake and Kelly's incredibly selfish actions. They trampled on my 12 years of suffering and efforts to become a family with them. They rejected, mocked, and exploited me extensively. I was left out, feeling lonely and in pain. I had wished countless times to be treated as family, but my wish was never fulfilled. It took me 12 years to give up. I continued to strive to build a relationship as Kelly's mother, as family, but it ended like this. A self-mocking smile appeared on my face. Seeing my dry smile, Jake and Kelly stared at me in shock. Jake seemed to lose strength and slumped down into his chair. These two never understood my feelings and tried to exploit me until the very end. I cared for Jake and Kelly, but they never cared for me. No matter how much I cherished them, they never cherished me. And now, when they're in trouble, they try to use me, claiming we're family, something they never believed in. It's too convenient. I feel not just a headache, but even nausea. Why did I put up with these people for 12 years? Looking back, it's strange, but it's pointless now. There's no future for the three of us together anymore. All I can do is make Jake and Kelly acknowledge their guilt and make amends. I no longer expect anything from Kelly or Jake, nor do I trust them. Jake stood up and apologized deeply. I'm sorry, please come back, I'm begging you. No matter how he apologizes, it doesn't resonate with me at all. I won't reach out to help, and I definitely don't think about living together. Enough already. I'm not your family anymore. I'm a stranger to you. Kelly also began to apologize deeply. I'm sorry, please forgive me. We're family, so I want to go back home together. I'm appalled by her selfish way of speaking. After treating me like a stranger for 12 years, now what? Come back because we're family? Did she think I'd be okay with that? That's too naive. No way. It seemed I could no longer keep my composure. Words I would never have said before came out of my mouth. I don't want to hear your excuses. I can't trust any words anymore. I definitely can't think of us as a family ever again. Then I placed a single piece of paper in front of Jake. It was a divorce form. Of course, I had already signed it. Hurry up and sign the divorce form. I'll file it myself. Write it here right now. Jake shook his head vigorously, then showed me a smile. Think it over, okay? I was shocked at how bad Jake was at the end of our life together. He really is a small-minded man. I had always misunderstood Jake's ingratiating smile. The smile he showed when we first met was a sleazy expression of sizing someone up. I mistook it for the smile of a kind person. Thinking about it now still makes me angry. I stood up and called for my parents in the back. My parents then entered the living room. Jake's mouth hung open, as if his jaw had dropped. Father-in-law, he stammered. My father glared sharply at Jake, and my mother also looked stern. Just being glared at made Jake shrink and cower. I'm very sorry. Jake started apologizing deeply and forced Kelly to do the same. I've troubled you because of Lisa's misconduct. I thought I heard wrong. My misconduct? Was Jake still trying to evade responsibility? My father's eyebrow twitched, but he remained silent. Lisa, well, she left home on her own, so I was just trying to persuade her to come back, right, Kelly? Jake urged Kelly to agree with his ridiculous story. Lisa's misconduct. Don't joke with me. My father's loud voice echoed through the house, making the windows rattle. Jake and Kelly gasped quietly. My father stood in front of Jake, meeting his gaze. How can you say Lisa was being selfish? You only think of yourself. You really are a petty man. Then he turned to Kelly. You've done some terrible things too, Kelly. What did you think of Lisa? You did it again. My father's loud voice reverberated throughout the room. Kelly must have been really scared. Her body was trembling. My father stood towering over them with a stern look. Kelly, you've been causing problems at school too. I've looked into it. Using my father's connections, we hired a private investigator, and it turns out Kelly had been extorting money from a girl at school. The victim was too scared to confide in anyone. but my father arranged for her to file a criminal complaint. Kelly, with wide eyes, exclaimed, "She ratted me out, didn't she?" I felt like I had seen Kelly's true nature. She hadn't reflected at all. She was only thinking about getting through this situation. "And you, Jake, you've been embezzling money from the company." This too was revealed by the private investigator. Jake had been making fake business trips. I hired the investigator to strengthen my case for divorce, but the investigation uncovered appalling facts about both of them. "Why, how could you even? Was it her?" Jake reacted just like Kelly, showing no remorse at all. They were so bad at accepting their fate. Neither of them would escape punishment from me. They would face societal sanctions too. Then my mother spoke up. "All right, the discussion is over. Sign the divorce papers and leave this house immediately." Jake, sobbing and muttering "no, no," gave up when my father handed him the pen. He sat down and signed the divorce papers. I glanced at the clock. It was almost 8:00 p.m., and the last train was at 8:25 p.m. If they missed it, there would be no trains until tomorrow morning. In this small town, there were no other means of transportation. If they didn't catch the last train, Jake and Kelly would miss the demolition scheduled for tomorrow. They probably hadn't packed their bags, thinking they could persuade me. While I was hesitating whether to tell them, Kelly suddenly said something unbelievable with a sulky attitude. "But this divorce was initiated by you, right, Mom? Dad, you should get alimony." Kelly must have been desperate after being exposed. My parents looked shocked. "That's impossible. What you two have done is outright domestic abuse and a crime," I said. Kelly, momentarily taken aback, retorted defiantly, "Show the evidence then." I placed a notebook on the table. "This is a diary I've been keeping since we got married." Kelly glared at me with a mocking look. "You don't even have a smartphone or computer. What kind of evidence could you possibly have?" "You seem not to know that a diary can be substantial evidence. It's not just videos, audio, and pictures that count as proof," I explained. Kelly looked dumbfounded. "Yes, our lawyer agreed too. This diary is valid evidence." Jake and Kelly finally hung their heads in resignation. I exaggeratedly checked my wristwatch. "The last train has already left. I guess you can't get back home tonight." Mother also looked on with a smug face at Jake and Kelly. "That's right. There are no taxes around here either. I wonder if there's even a decent hotel nearby. Well, our business here is done. Get out now." Jake and Kelly were rushed out of the house. They probably couldn't believe the last train left so early. I watched them hurrying toward the station from the second-floor balcony. As I watched Jake and Kelly's flustered backs, everything that had been building up inside me began to flow away. There were still some loose ends to tie up, but it felt like it was finally over. Jake and Kelly missed the last train and, unable to catch a taxi, ended up walking for about an hour to a hotel. The next day, when they got to the house, the demolition had progressed, and they managed to salvage only their clothes. Actually, I had temporarily stored the furniture, appliances, and my personal items in a warehouse, but I didn't tell Jake and Kelly. I got a report from the lawyer that the divorce was finalized, including a claim for alimony. Jake was reluctant to pay, but his company was pressured to ensure the payment. According to the private investigator, Jake was fired from his company for embezzlement. Kelly ended up getting involved with the police and was expelled from both college and high school. Jobless, Jake could only afford to lease a small, old apartment far from the station. He lives there with Kelly, who dropped out of high school. Kelly blames everything on Jake, and Jake criticizes Kelly at every opportunity, leading to endless arguments between them, as reported by the private investigator. I was considering what to do next after quitting my part-time job at a real estate agency. Then my father suggested I help with the family business, and I got a job managing his resort real estate company. Living in a resort area is quite different from city life, but being surrounded by nature is a refreshing change. I've also started keeping a dog, so living alone isn't lonely. Right now, this dog is all the family I need. I think I'll just live a relaxed life with my dog from now on.